force with about 100 officers from the Correctional Services Department.
Now, on the economic front, data out of Beijing are also front and center. The latest readings show China's economy continues to lose steam. Industrial output, retail sales, and fixed asset investment for October all came in below estimates.
We also have disappointing data out of Japan, where the economy grew just 0.2% in the third quarter. Economists had forecast an expansion of 0.9%.
When it comes to U.S.-China trade negotiations, talks are stalling over how to enforce an agreement for China to buy U.S. farm goods. Sources tell us Beijing is resisting requests to provide monthly, quarterly, and annual targets for purchases.
Turning to Europe now, it looks like Germany narrowly avoided a recession in the third quarter. Data show the economy expanded 0.1%, with gains led by consumer and government spending. But it's too early to sound the all clear, according to Berenberg senior economist Callum Pickering.
Either the global risks go away, global demand improves, and Germany gets back to trend next year, or these risks persist or potentially worsen, in which case the domestic side of the economy starts to show some strain, and then you genuinely have to worry that Germany is suffering from quote-unquote recession.
Trade tensions, weaker global demand, and turmoil in the auto sector have led to Germany's worst manufacturing slump in a decade and raised questions about the country's role as an economic powerhouse in Europe.
Now let's get you up to date on how stocks are faring. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down about 5 points. Dow futures down 39. NASDAQ futures down 13. The DAX in Germany is down 0.3%. 10-year Treasury up 12/32, yield 1.84%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.61%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.1% or 64 cents at 57.76 a barrel. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
All right, thank you, Karen. It's 6:33 on Wall Street, and Michael Barr has the latest on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Nathan. The first two witnesses before the House impeachment inquiry have painted a picture of President Donald Trump's call with Ukraine's President Zelensky. William Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, testified that President Trump ordered about $400 million in military aid withheld from Ukraine for political purposes. Democrats say the opening day of public testimony revealed a striking account of Trump abusing his office. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio called the process unfair to President Trump, which led to this exchange with Democratic Congressman Peter Welch of Vermont.
The American people see through all this. They understand the facts support the president. They understand this process is unfair. And they see through the whole darn sham. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Welch. Thank you. I say to my colleague, I'd be glad to have the person who started it all come in and testify. President Trump is welcome to take a seat right there.
Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick told the Boston Globe today he has joined the crowded 2020 Democratic presidential campaign. Patrick says he will launch his run for the White House in New Hampshire today. Turkish President Erdogan said he personally returned a letter that President Trump sent him last month, warning him against an offensive in northern Syria before Turkey began its incursion. Trump didn't respond to that at the joint news conference, but added,
the relationship with President Erdogan and Turkey has been outstanding.
Trump's letter dated October 9th cautioned Erdogan not to be a tough guy or a fool. An Israeli military spokesman said today the 2-day round of fighting in Gaza is over, confirming a ceasefire announced earlier by Islamic Jihad militants. New York has now raised the minimum age to buy tobacco and e-cigarettes to 21 years old from 18. Jim Calvin with the New York Association of Convenience Stores says businesses have a lot to lose for selling products to underage customers.
They can have their tobacco license suspended for as few as 2 underage sales within a 3-year period. And not only do they get their tobacco license suspended, but their lottery license suspended.
Governor Andrew Cuomo says the goal is to prevent addictive cigarette and vaping products from getting to young people. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thank you, Michael. 6:35 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, with back-to-back Cy Young Awards, Mets ace Jacob deGrom is in elite company. 10 others have done it, and 8 of the 10 are either already in the Hall of Fame or headed there, like Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer, and Roger Clemens' case not in, only due to PED use. SNY spoke with deGrom yesterday.
saying it was a goal to win a Cy Young, which I think it was. It's every starting pitcher's goal or pitcher for to win one, but to win two back to back, I think this one's going to take some time to set in, and never really could imagine it. Like I said, it's a goal and a dream, and for it to actually happen is pretty unreal.
His 2019 started slowly, but after April, in 24 of his 28 starts, DeGrom allowed no more than 2 earned runs. Houston's Justin Verlander beat out his teammate Garrett Cole and won for the second time in the American League. At the Coliseum, Islanders stay hot. Anthony Beauvillier, a pair of goals, a 5-4 win over Toronto. Isles have now won 12 of 13. In Newark, Ottawa, with 3 in the third, beat the Devils 4-2. Rangers visit Tampa Bay tonight. The Knicks host Dallas. The Mavs, one of 2 teams that they have beaten this season. Nets continue the road trip in Denver. Last night, the Lakers crushed the Warriors by 26. The Lakers are 9-2. Golden State is an NBA worst, 2-10. A lot of local college basketball last night. Rutgers got by Drexel, 62-57. And Rose Hill Fordham, a late three-pointer to slip past Fairleigh Dickinson. First win for Columbia. Losses for Iona, Hofstra, St. Peter's, and Monmouth. Ranked teams met in Ohio State. Beat Villanova by 25. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. And on the pre-market this morning, we're seeing shares of Cisco Systems down almost 6%. The company gave a quarterly sales forecast short of projections, saying companies are postponing hardware purchases due to economic uncertainty. Nico Grant covers Cisco for Bloomberg.
Cisco executives, including CEO Chuck Robbins, are saying that there are global macroeconomic forces that are happening right now that are weighing on customer confidence. He cited protests in Hong Kong. He cited U.S. politics, uncertainty in Latin America, and Brexit, all as reasons why customers are shrinking the size of deals and also postponing deals.
Cisco says revenue in the current quarter will decline 3 to 5% from the same period last year. On the economic front, we get data on wholesale prices today. Economists forecast the producer price index rose 0.3% in October. We get more from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
In September, the producer price index dropped 0.3%, the biggest decline since January. Bloomberg Economics says the cost of some finished goods is moderating and could put what it calls downward pipeline pressure on consumer prices. Also today, the government issues weekly data on jobless claims, which fell in the prior report to a 4-week low of 211,000. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Vinny, thank you. 6:38 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Green Report. Here's Bob Moon.
It's happening on the same planet we all call home, half a world away. Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, is a city of some 6 million. Decades of war brought waves of displaced people and an infrastructure that's been wrecked.
The water system, electricity, public transportation, green areas, all these things.
As Atullah Siddiqui of the country's Environmental Protection Agency explaining why Afghanistan's pollution has become even deadlier than its 18 years of war. A case in point, Yusuf, who fled to eastern Afghanistan 8 years ago to a camp for displaced people where families keep warm and cook by burning the garbage that surrounds them. Over the years, 5 of his children got chest infections and other maladies and never made it to age 7. There are no official stats, but the research group State of Global Air estimates pollution killed more than 26,000 Afghans in 2017. The UN says some 3,500 civilians were killed in the war that year. That's the Bloomberg Green Business Report. I'm Bob Moon.
All right, Bob, thank you. Now some other stories we're watching. Activist investor Carl Icahn is reportedly making the case for the proposed merger of Xerox and HP. We already knew Icahn holds an almost 11% stake in Xerox. Now he tells the Wall Street Journal he also owns more than 4% of HP, and that could increase pressure on HP to strike a deal. Daimler wants to save $1.1 billion by cutting jobs at its Mercedes division. The goal is to manage the disruptive shift to self-driving electric cars. Daimler plans to eliminate 10% of management positions as part of that effort. And shares of Disney are at a record high. The company says its new streaming platform, Disney Plus, attracted 10 million customers just a couple days after its launch, a blistering pace reflecting the strength of the family-friendly brand in a crowded streaming market. S&P futures are lower by almost 5 points now. Dow futures down 41. NASDAQ futures lower by 15 points. The 10-year Treasury yield 1.84%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Let me ask you, when do you believe you get the best deals? Black Friday? Why wait? The best deals are now at Carphone Warehouse. Save an amazing 60 pounds on the Samsung Galaxy A40, just $14.99 a month. How about a Vodafone SIM-only deal for an incredible £15 a month with 10 gig of data? Get great deals today without the wait at Carphone Warehouse. Samsung A40 on select 24-month contracts. SIM Vodafone on select 18-month contracts. T's and C's apply. Visit website for more details.
Here at LNER, we love giving you more value. And we all love more, don't we? More sleep, more sun, more me time. So we've added our new Azuma trains with more seats and more great value fares. In fact, there are 3,773 more £29 single tickets every week on our Azuma trains between London and Leeds. Brilliant. Book direct at lner.co.uk, launching alongside existing LNER trains.
Breakers to a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Turkey is sending a suspected ISIS militant to the United States. He's a U.S. national who has spent 3 days in a no-man's land between Turkey and Greece after Turkey tried to deport him. Turkey now saying they will repatriate him to the United States, adding the U.S. made Turkey an unexplained pledge. This one day after Turkish President Erdogan met with President Trump at the White House. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick is set to announce his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination this morning, as we hear from Christopher Cruz.
Patrick had considered running for the White House, but last year announced he had decided not to go forward because of what he called the cruelty of the election process. Patrick is 63. He served 2 terms from 2007 to 2015.
He'll just make the deadline for entering the next-door New Hampshire primary. In Kentucky, a recanvass today of last week's voting tabulations in the election for governor, with incumbent Republican Matt Bevin trailing Democratic challenger Andy Beshear by 5,000 votes. Stock futures are down slightly this hour. I'm Michael Toscano.
If you're at the top of your profession, you're listening.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Bloomberg Surveillance.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And at 6:47 on Wall Street, and futures this morning are moving lower. We go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bailey Lipschultz. Bailey, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. As you said, futures are drifting lower as investors digest the latest economic data and updates on trade. The Dow is down 35 points, S&P lower by 5, with the NASDAQ off 14 points. U.S. 10-year yield is at 1.84%. Shanghai rose 0.2% overnight as European markets moved lower, led by losses in the UK, and oil rose 1%. Back in the U.S., on the economic front, at 8:30, PPI final demand and initial jobless claims. Regarding earnings last night, Cisco sales forecast fell short of estimates on slowing global demand. Shares are down almost 6%, while NetApp's 3Q earnings forecast midpoint beat estimates, and look for results from Walmart around 7 o'clock. Regarding deals, QIAGEN extended gains after a report. Thermo Fisher is weighing a purchase of the company. And in other news, Apple is considering bundling its digital subscription services as soon as 2020. Wrapping things up, Kraft Heinz cut to sell at Goldman Sachs. AGCO raised to outperform at BMO. And Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile were all cut to hold over at HSBC. Live from the First Word Breaking News Desk, I'm Bailey Lipschultz. Karen?
All right, Bailey, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, House Democrats are lining up a few more witnesses for closed-door testimony in the impeachment hearings. A U.S. Embassy official, David Holmes, is set to speak privately with investigators tomorrow at the inquiry. According to the Associated Press, Holmes is said to be the person who overheard President Trump and Ambassador Gordon Sondland discuss Ukraine and investigations. Tomorrow's public part of testimony comes from the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. In Major League Baseball, the Mets' Jake DeGrom won the NL Cy Young Award. The Astros' Justin Verlander won the AL Cy Young. In the NHL, the Islanders won, the Devils lost, the Capitals won. In the NBA, the Celtics beat the Wizards 140 to 133. The Warriors lost. It is Week 11 in the NFL. Tonight, the Browns host the Steelers. Finally, from daybreak on the Bloomberg, score one for humans. After 4 years of trial and error, Boeing is dumping the robots that build some components for its 777 jetliners 777. Instead, it will rely on skilled mechanics, while machines will focus on physically demanding tasks like drilling holes through metal. Nathan, manufacturers are finding many cases where technology hasn't caught up yet to the dexterity and precision of human hands and eyes. So take that robot from Lost in Space.
And yet, robots can still do surgery. But it'll be interesting to see whether this shifts some of the sentiment surrounding the Boeing 737 MAX. Of course, Boeing's gone through a great many issues over the last couple of years.
Can't meet human hands. I like it. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Keeping us in good hands. Thank you, Michael. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. We're at 6:50 on Wall Street. Time now to check what's going on in D.C. Some of the top stories in our our nation's capital include day 2 of testimony from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, this time before the House Budget Committee. President Trump meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg before holding a re-election rally tonight in Louisiana. And the president now taking his case to keep his tax records out of Congress's hands to the Supreme Court. Also making news, bombshell testimony in day 1 of public impeachment hearings. For more, we go to Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter. So now we have another phone call revealed by Ambassador William Taylor. Kate, how important is this?
Well, this phone call is certainly going to be something that lawmakers, I'm sure, will want to know more about and perhaps talk to, either Trump or, Sondland or the staffer involved about. Basically, at issue here is that Bill Taylor testified that he had a staff member who reported overhearing Gordon Sondland, who's the U.S. ambassador to the EU, speaking to Trump, and that the message from that call was that the president was more concerned about investigating the Bidens than he was about Ukraine, and also that Rudy Giuliani, Trump's personal lawyer, was working to make sure that the investigation into the Bidens, did occur. And so that's potentially very significant testimony. I think that, that's going to be something when Sondland comes to testify that lawmakers are going to want to probe him on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch next week when Sondland comes to testify. But how does this focus the Democrats' case against President Trump? There'd been, a lot of talk about the withholding of the aid, the idea of investigations of Joe Biden being in and of itself something that's problematic. Does this sort of refocus things for Democrats?
I think it does. I mean, I think that, again, as you say, I think there is maybe perhaps not even the need to get into focusing a lot on this question of aid to Ukraine and whether Ukraine knew the aid was being held up and when they knew that. Sort of the timeline has been one of the things that Republicans have used to challenge this. And I think in this case, if we are able to get some additional information about Trump's own actions as they pertain to perhaps this conversation with Sondland and what specifically he wanted the Ukraine to do in terms of investigating the Bidens, if that becomes clear, and there's more evidence to support that, then I think that certainly will be, potentially very problematic for the White House.
At the same time, Republicans are focusing in on the fact that there were no investigations of Joe Biden and the aid was eventually released. Does that bolster their case?
I think it certainly, certainly helps their case. I think that there have been a lot of tactics taken by Republicans to try to, discredit, and defend the president and discredit some of what has come out. And I think certainly one of them is exactly the argument you just made. I think that sort of the counter to that is that there is some also evidence that, Ukraine's president was actually most interested in having a face-to-face meeting with Trump, which he did in fact get. And so I think that makes the issue of the aid kind of less significant potentially.
We hear tomorrow from the former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. What will you be looking for from her testimony tomorrow?
I think from the Yovanovitch testimony, one of the things that everyone's going to be very interested to hear is specifically, how she feels that her recall from the Ukraine actually played out. And, there was in her written testimony or closed-door testimony, we know that she said that she felt threatened by the way that Trump talked about her on the July 25th call. And so I think that's something, whether there are additional details that come out about that and her reaction to that, I think is going to be an interesting aspect to watch.
Finally, we find that perhaps there is still room in the crowded swimming pool for Democrats. Deval Patrick, former governor of Massachusetts, has just announced that he's running. How does this, if at all, shake up the race?
Well, I think certainly he's coming late to the race, but I think that it demonstrates that there is concern out there among Democrats, prominent Democrats, and within the party about whether the current crop of candidates actually is going to be able to mount a significant challenge to and beat Trump in November of next year. And so I think that is why we're seeing, folks like Deval Patrick perhaps jumping in a little bit later in the game. And I think the lane that Patrick was likely to run in is going to be among the more moderate Democrats. So he would be kind of a direct challenge potentially to Biden if he does gain traction, and could siphon off some of the African American vote from Biden's base of support, where he's been doing very well, and also, compete with folks like Pete Buttigieg for moderate voters, moderate parts of the electorate. So, in some ways it's still early. Nobody starts voting till February, but in other ways, people have been in the race now for quite some time, so it's going to be hard for anyone else to kind of break in.
And we're just quickly, you got to think there's pretty long or pretty big hurdles for Patrick in terms of fundraising and, just stumping in places like Iowa, no?
Absolutely. And, he's someone that doesn't have very strong name ID nationally. And so that's going to be an issue as well. And, the later that getting in later makes that even more difficult. Also, there's a number of, a lot of the big time Democratic donors have already, committed to other candidates. And so that's going to create a fundraising challenge. Some of the other candidates have really struggled to break out of single digits in the polls. And so it'll be interesting to see how he does. But, it's definitely an uphill climb.
Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter, thank you, as always. Karen?
All right, Nathan, thank you. It is 6:56 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg Small Business Report, and here's John Tucker.
Orrin Frank co-founded New York-based Talkspace with his wife, Ronnie, in 2012. Talkspace connects people with a network of licensed therapists. For a fee starting at $49 a week, users can leave text, voice, and video messages with counselors who respond 5 days a week. Customers can pay more for live video chats. Although much of Talkspace's business comes from retail customers who pay directly, Frank says the service is increasingly being packaged into employer benefit plans. There's little definitive research that shows how digital therapy compares with in-person visits. Talkspace says people may benefit from more frequent exchanges with counselors. And according to Frank, online treatment can also reach people who can't get in-person appointments or resist visiting therapists because of perceived stigma. And that is today's Bloomberg Small Business Report. I'm John Tucker.
All right, John Tucker, thank you. Watching the pound right now, this after Nigel Farage announced that he will fight all Labour-held seats despite calls to stand his candidates down and clear the path for Boris Johnson to win a majority and deliver Brexit. The pound gained on speculation that Farage could pull out of more seats but fell after he confirmed he would not. He is speaking at an event in northeastern England right now. Right now, the pound is at 1.2840 against the dollar. It is lower against the dollar. S&P futures lower as well, down about 4 points, and Dow futures down 30. And straight ahead, it is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Abramowitz. For Nathan Hager, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Influence. Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Next. Nah. Nope. Boring. If you skip through loads of your TV channels, why are you paying loads of money for them? With TalkTalk TV and Faster Fibre, you can access the nation's favourite TV shows, a world of films and sport, live and on demand, all for £25.95 a month for 18 months. And if you're quick, you'll even get a year of Amazon Prime on us. Search TalkTalk TV. TalkTalk. For everyone. Offer ends 5th of December, subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
From New York City for our audience worldwide, good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, the latest data out of China disappointing, the economy decelerating, trade talks hitting a series of road bumps, weighing on hopes for a phase one deal as treasuries rally, stocks weathering the storm, equities holding on to all-time highs. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Thursday. Here is your Thursday morning price action. Futures softer by not even 0.1% after a record close on the S&P 500. Tom, for 5 weeks we've been told a phase one deal is close, and now they're disagreeing on the easy stuff.
I don't even think they can agree where to be. You know, what location or that. I mean, you're right. It's really bogged down.
Soybeans were the easy part. What happened?
That's
we can't
really
agree on
well
soybeans?
said. That's really, really well said. Now what? After soybeans. Would you continue, please, with the data view?
I would love to carry on. You
Please,
interrupted.
carry on.
Can I?
My
I've got
wayward
your
son.
permission to carry on.
Carry
Okay.
on.
Thanks,
My
Tom.
wayward son.
In the bond
I was thinking
market,
the same thing.
Treasury yields down 4 basis points to 1.845%. Can you imagine if he was actually my dad? 30-year yields coming down 4 basis points to 2.32. You're old enough. In foreign exchange in G10, the euro shaping up as follows. Euro dollar coming at 1/10%. And cable, Tom, I know you're looking at that. We're down 0.1% a pound against the US dollar.
You've been gallivanting around a lot. It's a Joe Coy line from the Philippines.
Gallivanting.
You're gallivanting around.
Where are you going with this?
I don't know. I'm going to. It's a really interesting thing. Let's be clear here. If there wasn't, John, if there wasn't the impeachment hearings yesterday, the Erdogan-Trump meeting was absolutely extraordinary.
Did you watch the news conference?
I watched some of it.
There was a really funny moment where the president turned around and asked the press, is there a friendly Turkish journalist out there? And I think some people in the room were thinking, I don't think there's any unfriendly journalists left in Turkey to ask questions, are there? Aren't the only journalists in Turkey the friendly ones because Erdogan got rid of so many?
Yeah. Also, Walmart earnings just out. We've been looking for this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but nevertheless, below nominal GDP. Our guest here will be able to comment on that. Same-store sales up 2.8%, ex the gasoline component, same number, up 2.8%. I don't see a lot of razzle-dazzle there, but nevertheless, Walmart always a signal for America.
We'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. Pleased to say that here in New York City, Stephen Whiting joins us, Citi Private Bank Global Chief Investment Strategist. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
Look, either investors think an agreement will still materialise or global growth bottoming isn't that dependent on a trade truce. Which one is it?
So, look, I think there is a little bit of leap of faith here that at least ahead of the U.S. election at the end of next year, that we will certainly not create a greater shock on the trade front, that there is a good deal of hope still there, but not utter clarity that we will pull down the tariffs, which we impose on ourselves, for example. But, you know, I think the larger economic story is that we had a true severe, you'll see it in the data in a couple months, inventory correction, that we have been producing fewer goods for export than are actually being demanded, and that if we were to stall here and simply hold these tariffs, we would rebound. We would grow through this. So I think it's still important for the direction of markets. You know, if you look at yesterday's market action today, I think the fact that, again, like you said, if we can't even agree on, the level of soybean exports, that this is not a done deal, and that's going to impact market sentiment more than almost any of the other news.
Well, what's the message to investors, to our listeners this morning when stocks are still near all-time highs? The Chinese data is weak. The trade talks have quite clearly hit a series of road bumps, and yet we are still near all-time highs.
Markets are telling us where the economy is going. And I think it's important, again, that the way that we have set this up, that with an absence of a severe pullback in inflation, rise in inflation, if we don't have over-levered consumers that just have no capacity to grow, and if we've just been cutting factory output, the economy can rebound. We are going to have a new all-time high in profits next year. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong next year. With share prices going up to all-time highs, well, you know, like a lot of things, this is where things go in terms of nominal returns.
Let's get out the crystals and pyramids right now and zone right in with Stephen Whiting of Citigroup. Yuri and Timmer, thank you, Alec Tanzi, for bringing me that important note. Jurgen Timmer, rather, up at Fidelity with a hugely bullish note this morning on the end of the drawdown, as you just said, on inventories. We had Steve Chivarone in here yesterday with Federated. Yep. He's single pointing up 13%. Whatever your number, I don't need a number, Stephen Whiting. I'm looking at that technology stock, Walmart, up 41% year to date, and up $3, make it $5 right now off of this earnings report. How do you have a bull market this long in this cycle?
Well, you know, simply not having a massive collapse in earnings, a big rise in unemployment, any of those things that don't seem to be necessary when we have a low inflation
rate. And Lisa,
rate.
This goes back to Tony Dwyer 101, which is if you don't have a recession, it's tough to get negative.
Well, you could also say this is just a massive bout of fear of missing out with the S&P up 26%, which isn't great. That's not a great reason to be investing right now.
That's okay.
What was 18?
All right, you out of the triple leverage cash fund yet?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, there you go.
Okay, so 2018 was the biggest valuation drop that we've had. Now, again, you had a down market last year with sharply up earnings. This year, we have a sharply up market with flat earnings. And, you know, in the end, we made some progress here, but our 2-year return is not really dramatic. I think, again, the big returns, when I'm optimistic on the economy in 2020, that's reflected in the stock market this year. So next year, it's going to be a more moderate return environment. It's going to be a somewhat more volatile environment for lots of reasons that you can guess. But people who are zooming, for example, to the end of 2020, I don't know for certain who's going to be president. I don't know for certain how Brexit is going to be resolved. They're going to ignore the economy's performance at their peril.
Let's put some capital to work then. What do you do, Steve?
So look, I think we have gone and tilted from being overweight global bonds as of August to now underweight. I don't think it's an extreme position. I don't think you're going to lose a lot of money in bonds in the next year. But we've tilted from defensive equities, you know, to realign to get a little bit more cyclical exposure. That's worked so well recently that, you know, when I think about the full year 2020, I have some doubts that cyclicals are just going to race through the full year 2020. So if you want to think about, again, investing and really holding a position for the full year 2020, I want, you know, stocks that provide current income and grow current income now. That sort of these, you know, show me with current performance that these types of equities are, you know, a good allocation for a world in which global bond yields, including emerging markets and high yield, you know, are down near 1.5%.
You're back to neutral. Would it be fair to say you're back to neutral, just in terms of the weightings?
This is, and you know, I think that we are reasonably more optimistic on where we will be going in trade-sensitive cyclical equities, you know, over at least the near term. Our longer-term asset allocation aimed at 12 to 18 months, you know, again, is not expecting any kind of, you know, repeat of 2019 returns.
What happens if no trade deal?
I think that you'll take a setback in markets. You'll see the dollar strengthen. You'll see equities weaken a bit on this, but I don't think it ends this current expansion, and that eventually you make up for that when we continue to grow through it.
Stephen Whiting, thank you so much. He's with Citigroup this morning. Very timely here. And again, Walmart with a real stretch, 123, 124, now up middle 120. Can I say 120 and 125 and 3/8?
Say whatever you like this morning, to be honest with you.
I think he's going to.
You're going to do it anyway.
I'm channeling Arthur Levitt. We're going back to fractions this morning, 125 and 3/8.
Equity futures down just a 1/10 of 1%. Look, the data out of China was really disappointed. Yeah. Severe downside surprise on some of those readings out of the second largest economy in the world. On top of that, just layer on top of that, trade talks don't seem to be going well at all. Yet what do we bounce off the lows on? We bounce off session lows on China dropping curbs on imports of Chinese poultry. What does that tell you about the investor bias? Of US poultry, rather, excuse me. What does that tell you about the investor bias right now? Just in markets, it's such a positive bias, isn't it?
And that's all it is.
And I would also suggest the calendar, and that, you know, I sort of started year-end 2 days ago with that Hyman and Steve Whiting's good comments. This morning, we're getting into that year-end thing. I would suggest quicker, sooner this year, and usually that's this. You get...
He's lifting his hands going up.
They can see this
just for our listeners.
For listeners who cannot see your hand motions.
He'll do some charts in a minute too. Don't worry. We'll get to the charts as well. Look, the rally on positive news has been bigger than the sell-off and negative news, and I think most people concluding the information content in how markets respond to data can sometimes be just as valuable as the data itself.
Can we put Nigel Farage in 5 things you need to know today?
You can get Nigel Farage in 5 things
we'll do that.
you need to know. Equity futures this morning on the S&P 500 down just 0.1%, negative 3 points. We pull back from all-time highs.
Highlight of the morning, Glenn Hutchins, thank you so much, from Paris, talking up the 9-1 Boston Celtics. He may buy the Knicks and the Rangers. That's rumored. He wouldn't talk to me about it. Could you see what could Glenn Hutchins do to the New York Rangers?
This is Bloomberg.
And now for the news from New York City. Here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Lisa, Tom, thank you very much. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick joined the crowded 2020 Democratic presidential campaign today. There are growing concerns in the party that the existing field won't produce a nominee strong enough to beat President Trump. Patrick, now the managing director of Bain Capital, announced that in a video he is running to build a better, more sustainable, more inclusive American dream for the next generation. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff says the first public hearings in the impeachment inquiry are a test of what kind of conduct or misconduct Americans expect of their president. Republicans at yesterday's hearing focused on the White House eventually releasing military aid to Ukraine, saying it shows the president did nothing wrong. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom? Lisa?
Michael Barr, thank you very much, sir.
Your name, too. I was trying to get
John.
We got there, Michael. Don't worry.
We're killing it. You're getting beat up this morning.
Who by?
I don't know. You came in too late last night.
I'm coming back at you.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 98 million. This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £98 million.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
At Asda this Christmas, treat them to a gift or two, or three, with 3 for 2 on a wide range of beauty and toiletry gift sets. From Dove, Lynx, Bayliss and Harding and many more. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Individual prices £1 to £20. Cheapest item free.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
From Bloomberg Television, here's Taylor Riggs.
Earlier this year, Juniper Networks bought Mist Systems for just over $400 million. This was done with the goal of bringing AI into the Internet of Things space. And the company is wrapping up its 5th annual Next Work Summit in Las Vegas, which is where CEO Rami Rahim joins us from. Rami, congratulations on the summit. And I want to talk about some of the announcements you're making, particularly within security intel. What are you hoping to achieve with that?
Yes, security is absolutely top of mind for pretty much all of our customers, CEOs, CIOs, boards of directors. Security intel and the announcements we've made are all about leveraging the network infrastructure to obtain data and information and insights that can allow us to improve the security posture overall in any enterprise setting. I mean, the one thing that every malware cybersecurity attack has in common is that it needs to traverse a network to do its dirty work, and we can leverage that as a tool to prevent the bad guys from doing the harm that they typically do.
And with the Mist acquisition, when can we see that pull in demand to the rest of your enterprise product portfolio?
I think it'll start to meaningfully add to our revenue in next year in 2020.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 7:17 on Wall Street. And Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing, providing the latest thought leadership with strategic and actionable insights to help you manage and grow your business. Visit the Perspective section of Pershing.com to learn more. Now let's check the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. Protests in Hong Kong continue for a 4th day. Schools in the city are now suspended through Sunday, while Chief Executive Carrie Lam considers further measures to curb violence. Elizabeth Warren is slamming Goldman Sachs for bias against women applying for the Apple Card. Warren says the onus shouldn't be on women to straighten out issues with Goldman's algorithm for determining credit limits. Carl Icahn tells the Wall Street Journal he's amassed a more than 4% stake in HP. That makes him the 5th largest shareholder, as HP tries to acquire Xerox. Icahn also owns a 10% stake in Xerox. Shares of Cisco Systems are lower after a quarterly sales forecast that fell short of estimates. The weak outlook signals companies are postponing hardware purchases because of global uncertainty. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
Hannah, thank you. Right now, S&P futures are down 4 points. Dow futures down 25. NASDAQ futures are down 14. The 10-year Treasury up 13.30 seconds, yield 1.84%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. A lot of news flow here this morning. Again, I want to emphasize Chairman Powell speaking later today. Day 2 of the Budget Committee as well. Right now, joining us is a gentleman who has been out in the streets in Hong Kong, and he brings all sorts of government and Asian perspective to the story of Hong Kong, and he is Ian Marlowe, and we welcome him this morning. Ian, it is a Thursday evening in Hong Kong. You, the media, and particularly the leadership of Hong Kong have to prepare for the weekends. What are they preparing for?
I think at the moment we're still waiting with bated breath. The city's been on edge for 4 straight days now. We've seen the commute disrupted. A lot of people are staying home from work. Public schools and universities have canceled classes. Universities are now even canceling the whole semester. At the moment, we don't really know what's next. I think there have been intense clashes this week, and things started off this morning really strangely with student protesters firing arrows at police officers from one of their campuses on the Kowloon side of the harbor. But then things sort of steadied out as the day went on, and even though there was some tear gas in the morning, things sort of reached a little bit of a standstill, and it seems at the moment that the city's on lockdown. There were rumors today of a curfew being imposed this weekend, which seemed likely, and it seemed like something that was within the realm of possibility. But those rumors were quashed later in the day, and it's just been something that everyone's been on edge here. Yeah,
John?
Ian, as you say, it's been a really strange day. There were those rumours of a curfew. China's state-owned Global Times newspaper deleting a tweet which had reported that Hong Kong's government was expected to announce a curfew this weekend. I think over the last couple of days we've been really thinking about what are the potential consequences if this continues, if it continues to escalate. Ian, have you got your hands around that, the potential consequences that could materialise in the coming week?
Yeah, I think everyone has watched the growing violence of this past week with a lot of concern, because it has big echoes up north of the border here in China, and the leaders in Beijing are watching this very closely. A lot of people thought that the violence displayed by some of the protesters this week, and you have to remember, it's not a straight narrative of sort of David Goliath. There's a lot of violence on the protester side as well. Molotov cocktails. A man was set on fire after an argument this week. One man remains in critical condition after being hit by a brick thrown by protesters. So there's a lot of violence here that could push Beijing to do something more drastic. And I think that's the thing that, again, from the beginning has been looming over this whole episode here.
Ian, within our reporting, do the protesters have a cogent leadership? I think of, make a movie of it 10 years from now. Are there 4 people in a room somewhere planning all this? Is there 6 disparate protests? What's the structure of protest leadership at this moment?
It's really strange. Everyone talks about it being totally leaderless. There's obviously sort of various cells and other things of people who have gravitated around particularly radical, protesters that go out together as friends or have formed friendships as things go along. But really, in the Occupy movement in 2014, Hong Kong had a clear leadership, and the Hong Kong protests had a clear leadership. And most of those people ended up in jail. And this time, people have been almost going out on a limb to make sure that there are no leaders here. Joshua Wong, for example, who had the most prominent activist here and had a Netflix documentary made about him, he has been in the protests every once in a while, but people have been almost going out of their way to point out that he is not in any way leading the protests. Yeah. And it's been really repetitive. It is leaderless. It's being organized online through these different forums, on Telegram chats that have, in some cases, tens of thousands of members. People just upvote the tactics that they want. So go shut down the airport, and then they downvote the ones they don't like.
So, Ian, just real quick here, is the violence escalating, or is it sort of just petering out and then popping up again?
I think the latter. I think in the sense that it's becoming a bit more intense and localized. One local commentator put it to me kind of interestingly, where he said the actual numbers of protesters are declining, but the violence in some way is escalating and getting worse. So we're morphing from something that used to resemble a protest movement to something that more looks like kind of sporadic bouts of urban violence, which is very different from where this began.
Ian, thank you so much for reporting, for all of our team in Hong Kong as well. The story on a Thursday evening in Hong Kong awaits the evening and then into Friday and the weekends as well. Futures at -4 down, futures at -29. I must make note of Walmart with the usual guidance and all. They boost their year outlook, and the stock is boosted to 120, 121 out to 125. When you look at the financials of Walmart, there's got dividend growth and cash flow growth as well. It is a hugely surprising effort to see Walmart, a moonshot, up over 40% this year. Please stay with us with a yield 1.84%, yield in 5 basis points. John Farrow, Tom Keene, Lisa Bramowitz. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Walmart is raising its full-year adjusted earnings per share forecast. Meanwhile, in the third quarter, Walmart-only U.S. stores saw their comparable sales up 3.2% with gasoline taken out, and that beat analyst estimates. Earnings per share in the latest quarter also beat projections. Revenue missed. Stock futures are slightly lower this morning, but the Dow and the S&P 500 start out the day at record highs. The Nasdaq was flat to lower yesterday. Disney shares hit a new record high after the company said it added 10 million subscribers for its new streaming service in only a day. The office space sharing company WeWork reported a net loss of $1.25 billion in the third quarter, eclipsing its sales and more than doubling its loss from the same period last year. The quarter coincided with a spending spree in anticipation of an IPO that did not happen. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition.
For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play. Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Waiting for a phone that makes everything look crystal clear, like a brilliant iPhone 8 with Retina display? The wait is over. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. This week, get an iPhone 8 for just $23.49 a month, a saving of £144. Get yours by 17th of November. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £27.49, now £23.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures down a little more than 0.1% on the S&P 500 following weak economic data out of China and developments on trade. On the trade front, negotiations stalling over how to enforce an agreement for China to buy U.S. farm goods. Sources telling us that Beijing is resisting requests to provide targets for purchases. Meanwhile, data out of China showing the economy continuing to lose steam. Industrial output, retail sales and fixed asset investment all coming in below estimates. Over in Japan, we have a weak GDP reading, the economy growing at just 0.2% in the third quarter compared to forecasts for a gain of 0.9%. And finally in Europe, here's a headline: Germany dodging recession in the third quarter. Data showing the economy expanding 0.1% with gains led by consumer and government spending. Some of the stories we'll be talking about through the next couple of hours then right here on Bloomberg Radio. Time now for some headlines from around the world. Let's say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Lisa. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick is making a late entry into the Democratic presidential race. Patrick announced his bid this morning in an online video. Patrick's announcement comes as some Democrats worry about the strength of the party's current field of contenders. President Trump says he was too busy doing the people's business to watch the start of the impeachment inquiry hearings. However, New York Congressman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says there has to be a sense of urgency here because the 2020 elections are now less than a year away.
We also need to move quite quickly because we're talking about the potential compromise of the 2020 elections. And so this is not just about something that has occurred. This is about preventing a potentially disastrous outcome from occurring next year.
Trump called the hearings a witch hunt. Australia expressed deep concern about the increasing divide between the authorities and Hong Kong people. Australia's foreign minister said it was crucial that police and protesters exercise restraint. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Jonathan.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
John, when you win 21 games, it's not unusual to win the Cy Young Award, but in Jacob deGrom's case, the 21 wins have come over a 2-year period, and deGrom won the award both seasons. In both years, he would have won a lot more had the Mets scored more runs on his behalf. So despite a slow start to 2019, an 11-8 record, a 2.43 ERA, deGrom repeats.
I don't even know. The words can't express it. I want to thank my family for all they do, my teammates, the baseball writers, the Mets. I said it was a dream to win one, but to win back-to-back, honestly, I'm kind of speechless right now.
In between the awards, deGrom signed a new long-term contract to stay with the Mets. Houston's Justin Verlander won in the American League 8 years after he won with Detroit. The MVPs go out tonight. On the ice, Islanders made it 12 the last 13, 5-4 over Toronto, and old friend John Tavares. In Newark, Ottawa rallied third period, beat the Devils 4-2. at 2. Speaking of old friends, Kristaps Porzingis back in the Garden tonight. It's the Knicks in Dallas. The Nets likely to be without Kyrie Irving in Denver. He's got an injured shoulder. The Nets have signed veteran Iman Shumpert. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. John
Stashower, thank you, sir. John Stashower there with the sports. You've had the news. Here's some price action this Thursday morning. Equities at a close yesterday, all-time highs. In today's session, futures just a little bit weaker, lower by 0.1%. Call it 0.15% on the S&P 500. A bid in the bond market once again. Treasury yields coming in for a third straight session, down 5 basis points on a 10-year to 184.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. Bloomberg Surveillance, thank you for being with us coast to coast and worldwide. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report, always brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, ranked #1 in the nation for student upward economic mobility. Learn more, do that at njit.edu. Here's Bob Moon.
Tom, Jonathan, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. Perhaps banking culture doesn't always make people dishonest. Scientists writing in the journal Nature say they were unable to confirm a highly publicized 2014 study that suggested banking culture can promote dishonesty. New lab experiments with bankers in the Middle East and Asia Pacific turned out differently, which the researchers say may indicate the original finding doesn't apply worldwide. In response, the authors of the original work pointed to several differences between the two studies and stressed that they never intended to imply that all banks have a problematic business culture. Instead, the point of the 2014 study, they said, is that such a culture could be part of the reason for episodes of fraudulent or unethical behavior. Among the speculation on why results differed, banking culture isn't the same everywhere. Another explanation, perhaps only ethical banks let their employees participate in the new study following widespread press coverage of the original results. Facebook says it removed 3.2 billion fake accounts from its service from April to September, up slightly from 3 billion in the previous quarter. Nearly all the bogus accounts were caught before they had a chance to become active users of the social network, so they aren't counted in the user figures the company reports regularly. Facebook estimates that about 5% of its 2.45 billion user accounts are fake. That's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report. Tom, Jonathan.
Bob Moon, thanks so much. 5 things you need to know to start your day. Brought to you by Portfolio Analysts, powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors use Portfolio Analysts to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Sign up for free at portfolioanalyst.com. So there I was, folks, on Park Avenue, me and the Shishi, the Regency Hotel with John. And John, of course, has to pause to talk to his good friend Nigel.
I introduced you.
I know. I was honored. I mean, Mr. Farage, John, so good to see you in New York. And
bear in mind that Bloomberg TV was on behind him, and I came off air 20 minutes minutes afterwards. But yes, I introduced you to Mr. Farage.
So what is Farage doing this morning? Like, is it news or not?
So on Monday, he confirmed that he won't contest 317 Tory seats. Today, he confirmed that he will contest Labour in all the seats. Now, I think it was good news. Do both? Good news for the Conservative Party that they won't face the Brexit Party in the seats they already have. But if the Conservative Party want a majority and a big majority, they need to win those Labour seats. And there's a worry for the Conservatives that the Brexit Party will split their vote.
More on this December 11th. The president, if there wasn't the impeachment hearing, the press conference yesterday, the body language with the leadership of Turkey and the U.S. with all of that recent history, just extraordinary.
I followed that news conference too, and in the Q&A, Tom, not really that many impeachment questions whatsoever. There wasn't really much discussion there, and it finished and they walked away. I was actually quite surprised by that. Typically, the president will hold court and actually take a lot of questions. We didn't get that yesterday.
We got to go to the elephant in the room with Walmart up 1 million points in this year. Let's combine these two. Steve Whiting, Citigroup, Mr. Schiavone, Federated, Jürgen Timmer of Fidelity out with a blistering note today saying the bear market's done. It's more bullish out there. That is a serious tone we're getting as people recalibrate for 2020.
Tom, I find it absolutely amazing. For 5 weeks, we've been told a phase one deal is close, and now they're disagreeing on the easy stuff. A question that I've asked, I'll continue to ask it through the morning. Either investors think an agreement will still materialize, or global growth bottoming, Lisa, isn't that dependent on a trade truce?
There was a sort of
theme that there was a lot of cash on the sidelines and people weren't fully invested, but we did see cash balances and cash allocations come down quite a bit. And you have to wonder, are people now fully allocated? In other words, is the tipping point more to the downside if we do get some sort of deal that doesn't happen?
We'll talk about that later in the program. Tom, I know you want to talk about Walmart. Walmart up 30% through 2019.
It's a tech stock. What's extraordinary is to look at the financials. It's still making 2 to 3 cents in the dollar. Graham, Dodd, and Coddle net income. Maybe it brings 6 or 7 cents down. They employ 2.2 million. Free cash flow is like, yeah, okay. And yet the stock, moonshot.
Bought Jet.com back in 2016, a little over $3 billion. Seem to have folded that into the company overall.
Competing with Amazon.
The e-commerce effort is looking really good. But also, Tom, I think the consumer story in America has been the resilient, the constant story through 19. And quite clearly, they've benefited from that on the stock side.
On Sports Folks, we will speak with Michael Barr about Mr. Verlander of the Detroit Tigers and his Cy Young win. Of course, Jacob deGrom of the Mets. Extraordinary. Forget about all that. The L.A. Galaxy. Full disclosure, I've never watched 1 minute. John, translate.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic is just a massive football star. Perhaps famous more for his character than it is for his football. But he is very, very charismatic. Scores some amazing goals. He's been playing for LA Galaxy the last couple of years, and he's leaving. And he sent out this tweet, and Tom, it just made me think of you. I came, I saw, I conquered. Thank you, LA Galaxy, for making me feel alive again. To the Galaxy fans, you wanted Zlatan. I gave you Zlatan. You are welcome. The story continues. Now go back to watching baseball. I just thought that was great.
Okay, it's just hilarious. I mean, I love it. But this guy, is he like Wayne Rooney, where they're sort of worn out in the Premier League, so they go here for the big paycheck?
I would say less so, because until he was playing really, really good football at Manchester United, then got injured, and then had to move to LA Galaxy. But
Can he go back to the Premier League?
No, I think he's going to end up in Italy, which is where he's played for several clubs. He's played for Inter Milan,
Could he go to AC Milan? Lisa, are you aware of this?
I'm just watching. I'm mesmerized by the photo that he has with the tweet of him standing on top of LA.
There is
with
talk
his arms
of
out.
him going back to my beloved AC Milan.
Would you like that?
The rumour is out there. I personally would love that. I would love that. From New York, this is Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
With a cold Thursday afternoons like this are cruel. You cough, you splutter, so does your car. Its battery dead, killed by an icy claw. Will anyone stand up to winter? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We fit new batteries on the spot from just £15, and we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Wandsworth, Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Batteries sold separately. Selected vehicles only in most stores.
What if your email let you see a project's entire history and not just the messages sent to you? What if everyone else on your team could see it as well? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Move communication from inboxes to channels in Slack. Instead of seeing a partial set of messages about a project, everyone in Slack sees exactly the same thing and moves work forward faster. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
Let me ask you, when do you believe you get the best deals? Black Friday? Why wait? The best deals are now at Carphone Warehouse. Save an amazing 60 pounds on the Samsung Galaxy A40, just $14.99 a month. How about a Vodafone SIM-only deal for an incredible 15 pounds a month with 10 gig of data? Get great deals today without the wait at Carphone Warehouse. Samsung A40 on select 24-month contracts. SIM Vodafone on select 18-month contracts. T's and C's apply. Visit website for more details.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Former two-term Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick has officially announced his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination and will file papers for the next-door New Hampshire primary today. Kentucky's Republican Governor Matt Bevin is hoping a recanvass of last week's votes today will let him have a second term, Bevin noting he trails Democratic challenger Andy Beshear by 5,000 votes.
Right now, he is numerically ahead and would seemingly be the next governor. And so if, in fact, that is corroborated, held up by what we determine through this process, then I'll be his number one cheerleader, making sure, because we want this state to move forward.
An American citizen suspected of belonging to ISIS is being deported to the United States by Turkey today. President Trump has agreed to take him in. Gaza militants have fired a barrage of rockets into Israel just hours after a ceasefire was declared to end 2 days of intense fighting between Israel and the Islamic Jihad group. Stock futures are showing slight losses ahead of the opening bell. I'm Michael Toscano.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This deal, what would it look like?
You're right. The others are here.
Is he doing a good job, you think?
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new Micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at IBKR.com/CME Mini. And U.S. stock index futures are edging lower this morning along with stocks in Europe. Shares were mixed in Asia as investors digest the latest economic data and trade developments. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 5.5 points this morning. Dow futures down 42. NASDAQ futures down 18. The DAX in Germany is down 0.4%. 10-year Treasury up 14.30 seconds. Yield 1.83%. Yield on the 2-year 1.61%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.8% or 47 cents at 57.59 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4% or $6.40 at 14.69.70 an ounce. The euro 1.0997 against the dollar. British pound 1.2847 and the yen 108.61. And Walmart is approaching the crucial holiday season on a high note, posting solid third-quarter sales and raising its full-year outlook again, showcasing its resilience in the face of Amazon's advances. Its shares are up 2.9% in early trading. Viacom's fourth-quarter profit beat. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate it. Here's what you need to know. Fred Bergsten, when he invented the Peterson Institute, and along with Adam Posen's excellent leadership, likes acuity. The secret is on the Delta shuttle, the American Airlines shuttle, is they read Mary Lovely. Her reports are exceptionally acute at the Peterson Institute about the trade war. And John, Mary Lovely of Syracuse and the Peterson Institute really has a wonderful bar chart of the profound effects across computer and electronic products, electric equipment, apparel and accessories, machinery except electrical. There's a detail here that's profound.
And I'm pleased to say that Mary Lovely joins us now, Peterson Institute non-resident senior fellow. Mary, great to have you with us on the programme. For a long time now, we've been told a phase one trade deal is close. We had a good friend of this programme on yesterday, Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy, talking about enforcement. Is that where the hang-up is at the moment?
Well, good morning. Yeah, I'm sure that enforcement is part of it, but also is the schedule for the purchases of agricultural products and what the timetable will be. So I think we're really hitting the rocky parts here, getting these top line promises onto paper, and a lot of us are very nervously watching how this develops.
Mary, trade deals take a long time to get on paper. Is that what we're seeing develop here? Or are we seeing something that you think you can conclude maybe this doesn't get done?
Well, we're worried about it. I think, as many people do, that there's enormous economic and political good sense to getting a trade truce here and get some of these purchases back back rolling in the marketplace. So, it is difficult to make these kinds of deals, and it really depends on how much they're trying to get done in this phase one. When we're talking about enforcement, we could be looking at some of the more difficult issues.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very difficult to get done in this short, compressed time period.
Is enforcement an issue with soybeans or other phase one items?
Surprisingly, yes, because of the amount of purchases that have been promised by the president and an uncertain marketplace. The U.S. is going to be concerned about how many will be purchased.
Okay, but this is great. How one way is enforcement? Do the Chinese want enforcement so they can count soybeans in Fargo?
The Chinese don't want to buy, well, to be kind of cute, a pig in a poke. They don't want to.
No, this is surveillance. The kind of cute works, Professor Lovely.
They don't want to be buying things they don't need, prices that are too high. And they also know this is their key leverage over the Americans. So they are going to try to not make very specific deals on paper, but the Americans want monthly, quarterly targets that will have to be met by the Chinese for them to be in compliance. All this tells us that some tariffs will remain, and certainly the threat of tariffs being snapped on or increased at any time will remain. So there'll still be a lot of uncertainty for businesses trying to figure out where they're supposed to invest in this new environment.
Yeah. Overnight, Chinese economic data, industrial output rising less than expected, retail sales, fixed asset investment, all disappointing. Who has the bigger incentive, China or the U.S., to make a trade deal sooner?
Hi, Lisa. I think they both have incentives, but, the Chinese system is different than ours. It really falls, I think, on President Trump's political calculations regarding this trade war. Clearly, there are many people who are happy to see the United States standing up to China and giving them hell, as they say. On the other hand, there are a lot of people that are beginning to be very badly hurt by this. And I think that's got to be a concern to the president and his team. So I would say that the U.S. has a lot here. China clearly, though, would like an end to this. Unfortunately, we're not going to see an end to conflict. We know that there's a lot of issues coming in the technology space between the two countries, the so-called push to decouple. So we're not going to see an end no matter what happens.
Who's in charge of saving face right now? I mean, if we've got to get through the next literally days, weeks, months, and Mary, you're expert at this, who's in need of saving face the most?
Wow. I'm not sure that I'm an expert in that part of it because it's really political. And, I think that President Trump has been able to sort of spin this the way he wants, at least to some part of the American population. And he will have the ability to say that if a deal isn't reached, he hung in there. He hung tough. He didn't go for a cheap shot deal. I think the Chinese have much bigger issues that they're dealing with. Many of them are their own creation, Hong Kong, Xinjiang. They have the slowdown in their own economy due to their reining in of credit. So I would say that it really is going to fall down to who thinks they have the more political gains to make by having a deal here. I personally think it would be very wise for the president to make a deal. I think we're seeing that these tariffs now have broad coverage. The rates are higher. They're starting to hit a whole bunch of American products that are really going to hurt consumers. This is a consumer-led economy. So I'm hoping that the U.S. Negotiating team is able to find a way forward.
Mary, you mentioned Hong Kong and some of the domestic issues in China at the moment. Help us understand that just a little bit better, how something like Hong Kong can spill over to these broader macro issues and why there might be a problem for some of our listeners in the markets at the moment. How are you framing that, Mary?
Well, I am particularly framing it in terms of people's perceptions of China and domestic support for a trade deal with China, and also moving forward this idea of technology decoupling. I think that if we see China take a very strong hand in China, if we see a lot of bloodshed, even if things just spin out of control in ways they don't want, it's going to have big repercussions here in the Congress and among the American people.
Mary Lovely, thank you so much for the Peterson Institute. We greatly appreciate your perspective with Bloomberg Surveillance. We now turn here and welcome all of you to Farm Journal. Lisa Abramowitz with us today. I want to go to North University Drive in Fargo, North Dakota.
Is this a new segment?
No, this is a new segment. Okay, everybody, my idea of farm is to go down to produce in the bottom there of Columbus Avenue, Whole Foods. Okay, Lisa, out where you come from, the reality is if you grow it, you have to put it in a silo or elevator. And it's a huge expense, isn't it? I mean, farmers, to build a silo outside your Fargo is like a huge deal.
And the cost of storing the grain, the soybeans,
is huge.
It's huge and has gone up dramatically with the trade war because people didn't want to sell their soybeans at such low rates. So this cost of storage was increasing. Yeah, honestly,
see how Farm Girl clocks in here when we get to this job?
We Lisa Farm Girl.
It's just amazing. It's like Farm Journal. But this is really serious. I mean,
sugar beets.
What does John know? He's from England where they're counting sheep. I don't know anything about this. And Lisa, this is serious. I mean, these are real, tangible burdens for our farmers. If they can't move it, they got to store it.
And it rots. So if you have it rotting, you can't sell it at all. But if you sell it for a pittance. Thank you, John, for your contributions.
No problem.
This is an issue. It's a huge
They count sheep in England.
I don't know. I was just making
count sheep in Wales, Tom. If you're going to insult someone, insult them properly.
Okay, excuse me.
It's in Wales where they count.
Francine Lacroix today.
Insult the Welsh or something.
Okay, guys, I just want to say Francine Lacroix doing the Burberry's thing today. Francine's got
what does she say?
She's like doing the road show with Burberry's, and they're all coming out. And do they have any better ideas? Lisa, you're too young for this. Wait, Farrell, you're too young for this. I'm looking at it, and it's like middle Robert Plant. I mean, they've run out of ideas, so they're going back to that sort of late 70s, like not even hippy-dippy.
We're doing a fashion segment now.
It's a fashion segment.
I hate the Burberry check.
Why? Why do you hate that?
I just don't like it. And look, for me, growing up in the 90s, it was associated with football hooligans. And one of the things that Burberry did...
In what way?
One of the things that, the chavs, so to speak, Google it if you don't know what that is, used to wear the Burberry check to football matches, and it used to be associated with football hooligans. And one of the great things that Burberry did was park the Burberry check and focus on something a little bit more stylish that didn't have that all over it. They did that in the 2000s and it took off really well, and they managed to leave that behind. But to me, Tom, that is still what the Burberry check is. It's just a little bit...
Did you learn all this when you had that 3-bedroom, 3-bath on New Bond Street?
Well, he learned this while he was counting sheep.
Because I was in a football stadium next to the people wearing the Burberry checks.
And hating on them.
From New York. I have no idea where this show is going. Stay tuned.
This is Bloomberg.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista, who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, Shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Dell celebrates your small business this November with early Black Friday deals. Our biggest Black Friday ever starts right now. Save up to 50% on business tech, including Windows 10 computers, powerful servers, and the latest award-winning monitors, all with free delivery. Call 0800 085 4878 to talk to a Dell advisor today. That's 0800 085 4878. Or visit dell.co.uk/SB deals for Dell's biggest Black Friday ever. Limited time online offer. Hurry while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we've still seen people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene. Thrilled you're with us. Lisa Abramowitz here today. We survived the tundra, the cold-like tundra of New York yesterday. For a gentleman from Coventry, John, it was a bit chill yesterday.
Are you admitting it was freezing in New York City?
No, it was early freezing.
Oh, was it? Here we go.
Freezing.
It's not like it was when I was growing up and all of that stuff. Yeah, carry on.
But it was early in the year to see it that bitterly cold.
It's still pretty cold out there.
No, this is season.
Don't encourage
not even compared
by
to when
definition. By definition, this isn't a subjective piece of analysis about the weather. By definition, it was freezing cold.
On a Fahrenheit basis, it was. Let's look at freezing cold data check. It's like a churn here, but John, I'm going to say we're -5 on futures, but with an upward bias after the close yesterday and the shock and awe of the Walmart performance.
An extremely positive bias to the whole of this market, Tom, and that's the story for me. The rally on positive news has been much bigger than the sell-off on negative news through much of the last few months, and we see it again in the last 24 hours. Stocks still no all-time highs, despite the fact that the data in China is not good, and we've quite clearly hit some road bumps in the trade talks.
We've got the right guy to talk about this. We'll get to that in a moment. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, always brought to you by Cohn Resnick. Planning a transaction, turn your tax strategy into a competitive advantage. To learn how, visit Cohn Resnick's Capital Markets Tax Resource Center at cohnresnick.com/tax insight. When we get about freezing, I always spell Cohn Resnick, COHNREZNICK, cohnresnick.com tax insight. Why don't you bring in the gentleman who's had the courage to be in the markets lengthy?
I was just writing Cohn Resnick down. Do you want to spell it out again?
COHNREZNICK.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, I've got that. I'll check it out later. Julian Emmanuel with us now, BTIG Chief Equity and Derivatives Strategist. Julian, what's the message for clients this morning?
The message is actually Tom hit the nail on the head. A churn here.
But somebody loves me.
There we go. A churn at all-time highs is a good thing, okay? And if you think about it, the news hasn't been that great the last day or two. And so the market is very resilient because, in fact, there's a lot of investors who have their heads in the fourth quarter of last year. So they've been cautious coming in, which is why stocks.
Julian, we're thrilled you're here because you take a real derivative approach as well, the Greek letters and all that. How do you fold the quiet that's out there into equity performance into year end and that magical Tuesday in January where we finally get back to work? Is it to our advantage, this quiet, or our disadvantage?
Well, you could have a little bit of a pullback in the near term, but that is really not the message that we want to concentrate on. The bigger message is that if you look at it, the volatility spikes of the last couple of years, not coincidentally, have been accompanied by the Fed shrinking the balance sheet. That's over. The Fed it's not QE. We're taking pains to say that it's not QE, but the Fed is there to support the money markets, expanding the balance sheet, and that's a volatility dampener. That's a curve steepener, and ultimately that's a recipe for higher prices next year.
Julian Emmanuel was out doing the rounds in the middle of the summer saying that this bond market looked a bit bubbly. And now we've had a big correction. We've had a 50 basis point move off the lows of the back end of summer, early September. Now back to around 184 on a US 10-year. What's the call now, Julian, on government bonds, on treasuries?
We think yields are going to go higher in 2020. If you look at it, so the stock market has been going up for more or less 10 years, really the largest rally in terms of time. But the last several years, the public isn't buying stocks. Bull markets don't end until the public really gets interested in the stock market. We haven't gotten there. We think money eventually, sometime in 2020, is going to come out of the bond market and flow into stocks.
You're in the timeout chair. Can you write in a bigger font?
You going through his PDF. Thomas putting his glasses on.
The surveillance magnifying glass brought to you by Zeiss. Continue.
Spell that.
There's a question here hanging over whether we're getting a pain trade in the making, because you are seeing some retail investors starting to get more interested in stocks now. Meanwhile, if you look at five-year break-evens, if you look at the expected inflation rate 5 to 10 years out, it's near the lows of the cycle. It's not higher. So what's the catalyst here for yields to go higher and for people to rotate further into stocks?
Well, the obvious one, of course, is a trade deal. I mean, if you go back a month and a half ago, the minute the music started getting better around the prospects for a trade deal, that's when you saw the bond market sell-off accelerate. Second one would, of course, be some sort of fiscal stimulus out of Europe. Obviously, in fact, the strange thing about the data out of Germany this morning is, slightly above the flat line in terms of growth is probably going to get the people that want to hold on to the fiscal spend part to be a little bit more vocal. We think Madame Lagarde will hopefully change that view.
The German finance minister out in the last couple of minutes. The German economy is not in crisis. No need for stimulus now. That's the fiscal front over in Europe. On the trade front, we're hitting road bump after road bump in trade negotiations. How can we still construct an optimistic narrative with all of that going on in the background?
Because the reality is, if you look at it, the PMIs are starting to stabilize. They're at low levels. And in fact, if you look at Germany specifically, the future expectations index crossed over the present situation index. So for the first time in a number of years, people are more optimistic about what 2020 could look like.
So you're saying the global growth bottoming, isn't that dependent on a trade truce? Is that the call?
Of course it is. It is dependent on a trade truce. But look at the politics. You don't get a trade truce, and there's downside risk to the U.S. economy in an election year.
How are the black box guys doing? I mean, they all want to get on alpha, they want to get on gamma, this, that, and the other thing, all the Greek letters. How the black box team doing?
So the performance is mixed this year because at the stock and sector level, you've had a lot of rotation.
Exactly.
People were People were caught very out in September with the rotation, which we think continues. But ultimately, what you've seen is that if you're sort of a directional person, you've had this low volatility rally which, the value at risk people are adding to their positions now. That's not necessarily the right thing to do. We don't like adding to positions.
Okay, but this is critical. This is like Manual 101. There's two kinds of volatility. There's the media VIX volatility, and then there's the volatility day-to-day traders and alternative investments have to deal with. How are they surviving the internal rotation turmoil of the market? That volatility.
Again, you're tweaking the systems because you haven't seen this kind of rotation in quite a number of years. We think it's going to intensify, and people are, they're cutting their positions at the individual stock level, right, yet maintaining or increasing, in some cases, the market exposure.
Their overall market exposure. What does that mean for tech and the 12 stocks that have been moonshots?
It's a rougher go for tech next year. Not necessarily a market underperformer, but let's be realistic. In a year where you're concerned about data, privacy, and in the election, right, those stocks are going to have a hard time with headline risk anyway.
Julian Emanuel with us. Next time he'll come back and talk about Theta. He is with BT.
Julian, thank you.
As well. That's really important, John. Like volatility is sold as a one idea. Market up, market down, VIX, the VIX fixation and all that. And then there's looking at the expectation or futures of VIX. But separate from that, there's a whole separate internal volatility of the churn sector. This is on the real volatility. That's your
new
property.
Is that a new show? That sounds like your new program. We can do that.
The real volatility?
Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
We could.
Your 13th hour at work. Or is that hour 14?
You're saying Friday at 6 p.m.
Friday at 7:30 p.m.
7:30 p.m.
In
live from the Carlisle with Tom Keane.
In Greek.
And you can play the guitar.
That actually works.
I would come
because
to
they're
that. Have a great time.
Piano players.
You're there already.
There's like the first piano player, and then there's Lost in Harris, so we could do the show between the piano players.
Very cool.
After you have 6 martinis, what language do you speak?
It depends which club you're at, what the size of the martinis are.
Ooh.
So the responsible martinis.
You are selling this. If management are listening, this is on. This is on.
Sounds good. The real volatility.
Equity futures down a little more than 0.1% on the S&P 500. We're down 5 points, Tom, and pretty close still to all-time highs.
Real yield tomorrow. How do you approach this bond market? We've had this huge move in yield, and then we give it back a couple days.
The bid is back in, and I just wonder to what degree any kind of sell-off is self-limiting here, Tom. And that's the kind of discussion that I want to have through the next 24 hours.
No, we will see a lot of news flow, including Chairman Powell today. Chairman Powell with a budget committee, and you'd like to believe around the politics of an attendance with the House that maybe Chairman Powell can talk about the size of the debt, the deficit, and also this desire for fiscal space. We heard that from Ed Hyman on Bloomberg Surveillance a few days ago. Futures at -5, Dow futures -35. The VIX volatility 13.26.
Now let's get the news. We've got our own Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Tom, Jonathan. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick says he feels he has something to offer. Patrick says he will launch a late run into the 2020 presidential campaign. There are growing concerns in the Democratic Party that the existing field won't produce a nominee strong enough to beat President Trump. To Democrats, the first public impeachment hearing revealed a striking account of abuse of presidential power. But to Republicans, the conduct of President Trump was justified in stalling or conditioning aid to Ukraine. More public testimony takes place tomorrow. Jimmy Carter's pastor says the former president is already up and walking after undergoing surgery to relieve pressure on his brain from bleeding linked to recent falls. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Jonathan, Tom, Lisa.
Michael Barr, thank you very much, sir. This Thursday morning, good morning to you all. S&P 500 futures are negative by around about 5 points. You are listening to Bloomberg Surveillance live on Bloomberg Radio.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked breads to your door.
And for the barista, who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Dell celebrates your small business this November with early Black Friday deals. Our biggest Black Friday ever starts right now. Save up to 50% on business tech, including Windows 10 computers, powerful servers, and the latest award-winning monitors, all with free delivery. Call 0800 085 4878 to talk to a Dell advisor today. That's 0800 085 4878. Or visit dell.co.uk/SB deals for Dell's biggest Black Friday ever. Limited time online offer. Hurry while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Riggs.
Sticking with e-commerce company Brandless. It is competing in a crowded market. The SoftBank portfolio company aims to become the #1 destination for generic health and wellness products. Joining us to discuss the company's growth strategy is CEO John Rittenhouse, a veteran in the retail industry. He's held executive roles at Target, Walmart, and fashion startup Moda Operandi, among a slew of others. So it's great to have you. Give me your perspective. You're wrapping up your first 6 months. What have been the biggest challenges?
Well, thank you for having me, by the way. Challenges, I don't know. I would say that first, Brandless is a CPG company or consumer products goods company that is operating only on the internet, right? So it's one of a kind. And so that's a very unique situation as it is. And of course, we've coming in, looking at the strategy and looking what to change to get the growth numbers that we would really like to have as time goes by. We've changed our strategy a bit.
Can you give us any specifics on growth numbers where you would like to be?
Well, we'd love to be $1 billion revenue company, which we think is going to be somewhere around the end of 2022. and will be profitable in mid-2021 at this point.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street, and futures are lower this morning. Let's go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Karen. That's right. Modest losses in the futures right now. Dow futures down 36 points. S&P's dropped 5, and NASDAQ futures declined by 16. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.84%. Gold is up 5, and Shanghai rose 0.2% overnight, while European markets are trading mixed this morning. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, PPI final demand and initial jobless claims. And after the bell last night, Cisco's sales forecast fell short of estimates on slowing global demand. Shares are down 5% in the pre-market. Regarding earnings this morning, Walmart boosted year-adjusted EPS views. Shares are up 2.6% in the pre-market. And in others, Apple is considering bundling its digital subscription services as soon as 2020. Wrapping things up, Stanley Black & Decker was raised to buy over at Bank of America. Kraft Heinz cut to sell at Goldman Sachs, and Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile were all cut to hold over at HSBC. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. A house can have a house call, and it can be a pretty cautious call. It really colors every conversation and every tone worldwide when they have a more cautious call. John Farrow, can we state that PIMCO has a cautious call? I think we can.
Particularly on the corporate credit side. Yeah. I think we can say that, and we can probably say that on US growth relative to expectations going into 2020 as well. If you go on their most recent cyclical outlook, I'm happy that I don't have to speak for them, that Nicola Mai is with us, PIMCO's sovereign credit analyst. So let's do that, Nicola. Let's talk about 2020 and your expectations relative to what you see as the consensus view.
Yeah, so I would say that, we have been on the more cautious side. We do expect some kind of reacceleration in growth next year on the back of two things. I mean, first, trade tensions stabilizing, and secondly, monetary policy getting some traction. But on the whole, we think it's going to be a pretty slow reacceleration, partly because the trade tensions will keep simmering, and partly because, the monetary policy is hitting its limits when it comes to efficacy. We've already had a lot of stimulus before.
Let's talk about what that means for markets. This is something you wrote around about a month ago. Monetary stimulus is likely to prove insufficient and largely ineffective in raising depressed inflation expectations, and for that reason, the longer end is expected to remain supported. That's Germany. The long end right now, a 10-year negative 32 basis points. Nicola, are we stuck at these levels then?
I would say that, I see duration globally and especially in Europe as pretty anchored here. Even though the levels look extremely low, I just see it as very difficult for the ECB to actually be able to raise inflation without the help from the fiscal authorities. And Draghi has clearly, before leaving, been calling for that very clearly, but we're not seeing enough of a shift in the German political space to see that changing. So I would say the long end is pretty anchored.
So the extent of the sell-off in bonds is done?
It's obviously hard to have to call a very near-term move in duration, but generally speaking, we think we've seen a decent move here, and we're pretty neutral at these levels. We don't have a very strong conviction on the duration beta at these levels.
Some would say that the levels we're seeing on bond yields indicate much slower growth than equity valuations would imply. Do you think that equities are wrong here and have gotten ahead of themselves with pricing in the reacceleration that you're expecting?
Well, you see, I see the things as linked in that, equity prices have done well partly because central banks have been extremely accommodative. So the very kind of the rally in duration and in interest rates, risk-free interest rates, has been pushing up equity prices. If you look at our outlook, I would say that risk valuations in terms of equities, in terms of credit spreads, and so on, do look fairly elevated. We're pretty cautious when it comes to risk assets at this point.
So you're going to grab a coupon this year. How do you defend against price decline while you grab a coupon?
So So I mean, the way we try to make alpha, the way we make alpha is to be very selective. So it doesn't mean that we don't take any risk at all, but we go very focused on sectors and areas that we like. So, for example, financials we think offer good opportunities in the UK, but not only. We think that securitized assets like mortgage securities in the US, where households have been delevering a lot, offer good value. We think real estate assets more generally offer decent value. And on duration, we have some duration in our portfolios, especially US duration, which we see as a good hedge for having some credit risk. And also it still has positive yields.
Nicola, thank you so much. Nicola Meyer with PIMCO. Greatly appreciate it with a cautious view on your... But I love this time of year, John. Everybody's framing up a view forward, and there's some real disparity just on U.S. GDP between, I'll say, a 1.7 view forward versus 2.7 view
The outlook for 2020.
Yeah.
And the year ahead notes are starting to come through, Lisa.
Do you remember when people were talking about recession?
About 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, but that's not anymore. People are not calling for that next year or even perhaps the year after. And before, it had been the end of last year. Remember, that was sort of the consensus? That's been shifted back.
I would suggest you're right. Recession is a negative GDP, maybe slipped away, but SocGen is out there at 1.7% run rate, and Kamal Shri Kumar was in the other day again with a very cautious view as well. John, what do you see in the tape?
Median estimate 1.8% for next year, for 2020, by the way. Just looking at the consensus forecast. The median estimate from the survey that we do. ECFC on a Bloomberg terminal, yeah. 180
But that's just above stall speed, right?
This is the problem going into next year. Just how fragile is the outlook, and how big a catalyst do you need to push it either way?
Right. The idea being that if we fall behind a certain amount, it'll just sort of spiral. But, Walmart's doing okay, so the consumer's still fine.
Oh, this is great. John Farrell gets a love notes. I get the hate mail this morning.
Oh,
the inbox.
Nice. What did I get?
The inbox has been
what did I get?
Extraordinary. No, this is hate mail this morning from two separate listeners.
What did they say?
Riley from St. Louis and Jamila both emailed in.
Do they own cats?
No, they don't own cats. They were catty, I would say.
Anti-soybean?
I did not mention the CMAs in Mr. Combs winning Male Vocalist of the Year. This is really, really important. Long neck, ice cold beer never broke my heart.
Nice. Just Lisa's favorite song.
Apart.
Just Lisa.
Like a neon dream.
You're going to get in trouble. Just stop.
Look, Combs, CMA. They were lights out. Good morning, Reba McEntire.
Saving your career.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The dining chain Houlihan's Restaurants has filed for bankruptcy with a plan to sell itself to billionaire Tillman Fertitta's Landry's, which owns several chains, including Morton's Steakhouse. Landry's agreed to pay $40 million in cash for Houlihan's, which operates 47 restaurants in 14 states. Shares of Walmart are higher before the opening bell. The company heads toward the crucial holiday season on a positive note, posting solid third-quarter sales and raising its full-year outlook for the second time this year. Web sales in the U.S. surged 41%. Daimler is responding to the shift towards self-driving and electric cars by cutting jobs in its Mercedes-Benz division. The German carmaker plans to eliminate 10% of management jobs with the aim of saving more than $1.1 billion by the end of 2022. S&P futures down 5 points. Crude oil at $57.60 a barrel. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Cold Thursday afternoons like this are cruel. You cough, you splutter, so does your car. Its battery dead, killed by an icy claw. Will anyone stand up to winter? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We fit new batteries on the spot from just £15, and we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Wandsworth. Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Batteries sold separately. Selected vehicles only in most stores.
Next. Nah. Nope. Boring. If you skip through loads of your TV channels, why are you paying loads of money for them? With TalkTalk TV and Faster Fibre, you can access the nation's favourite TV shows, a world of films and sport, live and on demand, all for £25.95 a month for 18 months. And if you're quick, you'll even get a year of Amazon Prime on us. Search TalkTalk TV. TalkTalk. For everyone. Offer ends 5th of December, subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio with equity futures near the lows of the session, down around about 0.2% on the S&P 500. Just a little bit of risk aversion out there. 10-year Treasury yields coming in 5 basis points to 184 on a 10-year. Your economic indicators right here on Bloomberg Radio, brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. Let's get you that economic data, shall we? Here is Vinny, Dow Judice.
Okay, Jonathan, let's frame this properly. Producer prices, jobless claims low historically, but they are up last week, or they were up last week, I should say. Producer price index rising 0.4%, more than forecast month over month. Core excluding food and energy up 0.3%. Year over year, though, the PPI slowing up 1.1%. Core 1.6%. Jobless claims, meantime, 225,000 last week. Remember, we saw a 50-year low back in April. So all in all, the numbers, shall we say, pop. The latest batch of numbers pop. But historically, there we are. Quickly, We had numbers late yesterday from the Treasury Department. Happy fiscal new year. The budget deficit widening in October. The biggest October shortfall since 2015.
Vinny, you killed it. I'm so glad you went there on the fiscal space. And, of course, Ed Hyman a couple days ago mentioning how there's a possible need for fiscal stimulus in the United States. Diane Swank with us, with Grant Thornton. Diane, do we have room for fiscal space in America? Rates are abnormally low on a real and nominal basis. Are we under a complete delusion about our fiscal flexibility?
We're not under a complete delusion at the moment. The deficit doesn't matter until it does, and then it matters very rapidly. And I think that's why you saw Jay Powell sort of caution policymakers yesterday and step into the space that many of his predecessors have. Jay Powell's an old deficit hawk, and say, hey, we need to worry about fiscal sustainability because next time we hit a downturn, we will need fiscal stimulus. We have limited tools here, and I think that is very important about thinking about.
And Lisa, I'll be disappointed if this is not front and center at the Budget Committee. I know there's a lot of politics today, but Chair Powell's got to step out, as Ms. Swank mentions. He is a deficit hawk.
But not all fiscal stimulus is the same. What could we see that would actually be fruitful at this stage in the economic cycle?
That's a really great question. I mean, clearly, keep focusing on tax cuts, that's sort of a story that we've kind of played over and over again and not really worked at this latest stage in the cycle. What we really, really need is, of course, infrastructure investment, R&D investment that will have productivity growth with it down the road and will change the equation across the board for the American economy, not just for individuals that get those temporary tax cuts. That's what's really important at this stage of the game, is to think about the long-term potential of the economy to grow, and long-term investments at these low interest rates. Investments in our infrastructure do actually make sense. So there's a payoff to issuing cheap bonds and getting some productivity down the road.
So PPI inflation coming in below expectations if you strip out food, energy, and trade-weighted items. I'm trying to figure out what we're seeing here and how concerning this sort of decelerating inflation is.
Well, it's interesting because there's what came up yesterday in Chairman Powell's questioning was also the gap in inflation between low-income households and high-income households. And this is something that's not gotten enough attention, is the heterogeneity in the data. We look at the economic aggregates and we say, oh, we're worried about disinflation, we're worried about too low inflation. There's legitimate reasons to worry about that. That said, lower-income households and many households are saying, we don't see the low inflation. What are you talking about? Because the things they're paying for, not only do they not have the market power of higher-income households, they also have a fixed basket of goods costs that cost more, that they sort of don't have as much wiggle room. And this is really hard for the Fed, because at that point in time, do you say you want to run the economy hotter and get more inflation, hopefully from wage gains, but what if you don't get those wage gains? Then you're left out and getting hotter inflation, especially for low-income households, and not getting it spread across the economy evenly.
Diane, the latest communication from the Federal Reserve echoed once again from Chairman Powell yesterday, likely to do the same thing today on growth. What they would need to see to introduce another rate reduction, a material reassessment in the outlook. What constitutes a material reassessment in the outlook?
A major escalation in trade with China. I mean, part of the reason they stepped to the sidelines now and felt like they were done for a while is that they were hoping for this phase one deal with China, which now again looks in jeopardy, and not a further escalation in tariffs on December 15th. If we can get over those hurdles, the Fed will feel more comfortable in staying on the sidelines longer and holding their powder dry. I myself, of course, am worried about the trade war and wish they would have held that one rate cut a little bit back and then waited for when the big bang for the dollar was greater. But it is something that is really front and center, is the trade war with China. China having more weakness in their economy, again reporting in the last day.
Diane Swank, too short. We'll do it again. Diane Swank with Grant Thornton, of course, always giving us good help here on Fed Day with perspective, and of course out of Chicago with a real Midwest feel as well. Futures at -5, down futures at -39. It's a very strange morning. John, it says down, but it doesn't. I mean, yields in, they correlate, risk off. But it does. The tape doesn't feel that way.
If I told you would have a series of downside surprises on the Chinese economic data, if I told you there were significant hurdles to getting a phase one trade deal, then I just said, look, I'll show you treasuries, guess where equities are, and you saw treasuries coming in 4 or 5 basis points. I imagine you'd think stocks were down a solid amount. We're down just a couple of tenths of 1%.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, that's exactly how I would put it. We're also watching negative yields in Germany. Stephanie Flanders with that important interview with the finance minister of Germany on banking union to drive forward that conversation. Look for treatment from Bloomberg Economics on that through the day as well. In foreign exchange, it has been, John, is it like all-time quiet in foreign exchange?
Bit of a snooze in G10 at the moment, isn't it?
It's just like yen, 108.63, stronger yen for the last 2 seconds. Euro under a 110. I guess that gets my attention. 109.97, but I'm struggling on foreign exchange. Argentinian peso has not come in. Renminbi has been gyrating a little bit. Weaker renminbi over the last day at a 702 yuan per dollar. Worldwide, this is Bloomberg.
And now for the news in New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Lisa, Tom, thank you very much. Former Massachusetts Democratic Governor Deval Patrick released a video today announcing his candidacy for president. Patrick mentioned the Democrats. He'll now be fighting for the party's nomination.
I admire and respect the candidates in the Democratic field. They bring a richness of ideas and experience and a depth of character that makes me proud to be a Democrat. But if the character of the candidates is an issue in every election, this time is about the character of the country.
Patrick is expected to travel to New Hampshire either today or tomorrow before the filing deadline to get on the primary ballot there. Both sides are digging in after day one of public testimony in the impeachment inquiry hearings. Democrats say it showed President Trump's abuse of power. Republicans say it did not. The phone call was brought up by witness Bill Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, who testified that he only recently got word about the detail. Venice is enduring its worst flooding in decades. Floodwaters are now slowly receding. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here's John Stashower.
Tom, with back-to-back Cy Young Awards, Mets ace Jacob deGrom is in elite company. 10 others have done it. 8 of the 10 are either already in the Hall of Fame, headed there, like Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer, or in Roger Clemens' case, not in only due to PED use. DeGrom's 2019 started slowly, but after April, in 24 of his 28 starts, DeGrom allowed no more than 2 earned runs. He got all but 1 first-place vote. Houston's Justin Verlander beat out his teammate Garrett Cole and won for the second time in the American League. At the Coliseum, Islanders stay hot. Anthony Beauvillier, pair of goals, a 5-4 win over Toronto. Isles have won 12 of the last 13 in Newark. Ottawa, with 3 in the third, beat the Devils 4-2. Rangers visit Tampa Bay tonight. Knicks host Dallas. The Mavs, one of only 2 teams that they have beaten this season. The Nets continue the road trip in Denver. Last night, the Lakers crushed the Warriors by 26. Lakers are 9-2. Golden State is an NBA worst 2-10. 4 years ago, they only lost 9 games all season. Jets owner Christopher Johnson with a rare appearance before the media to support his first-year coach Adam Gase, but to admit he's not pleased with the Jets' 2-7 record.
We are not where we thought we would be. I don't think anybody in this building, me, and this team isn't where we thought we'd be. It's exceedingly frustrating, but I'm here watching this team grind away every day. The coaches grind away every day, getting better.
Week 11 starts tonight. The Red Hot Steelers going for a 5th straight win. They're in Cleveland with the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. I'm John Stashower. Tom?
John, thanks so much. It was interesting. And on the baseball front, Cy Young is a big deal, John. Very competitive. And to see Mr. Verlander do it, Detroit Tigers and, Michael Barr's been scarred for life that Mr. Verlander left Detroit and went to Houston, and then he won. Further mail in.
Are we optimistic about the Red Sox next season?
No, we are not. We're never optimistic about the Red Sox. Jamila emails in again and says, come on. If you're going to talk about Beer Never Broke My Heart, you've got to mention Randy Montana co-wrote the song. Randy Montana, great co-write with Luke Combs.
Nice.
Beer Never Broke My Heart.
Is that Hannah Montana's dad?
That is not Hannah Montana. They may be married.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, Number 1 in firm leadership. Number 1 in operational support. Number 1 in compensation. Number 1 in professional development support. And number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/award.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Deliveroo! Who ordered Royal China pepperoni pizza? Excellent choice, Dave. Here's your burrito, Dad. Turn off the computer, lads, and come and eat. Who ordered the extra portion of fries?
All your family favourites for any occasion. Now available in West London on Deliveroo. Download today.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. New Weekly magazine says Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom are considering getting married in Egypt because they enjoyed their vacation there so much. Speaking of weddings, Naughty Gossip claims Jennifer Lopez is allegedly trying to get someone to pay for her wedding. A source tells the website there's no way she is paying for that wedding and even less chance of her wasting one of the biggest press days of her life without harnessing it to help her business. To hear music from Katy Perry and Jennifer Lopez, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Makers to a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Yesterday's often dramatic public impeachment inquiry hearing was just the beginning. Correspondent Jessica Schneider says we'll hear a lot more testimony tomorrow and next week, including from Marie Yovanovitch, fired in May by President Trump as ambassador to Ukraine.
Yovanovitch will testify publicly tomorrow in what will be this round 2 of public hearings that will ramp up even more next week with 8 witnesses.
The popular 2-term former governor of Massachusetts, Patrick Duvall, says he is a candidate for the nomination of the Democratic Party for president.
So in a spirit of profound gratitude for all the country has given to me, with a determination to build a better, more sustainable, more inclusive American dream for the next generation, I am today announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
He made the announcement in a video released on his website. Kentucky's Republican Governor Matt Bevin hoping a statewide recanvass of last week's votes will show he won re-election. I'm Christopher Cruz.
For the latest business analysis, talk to the best.
Tell me about the collaborations.
And listen to the best.
What are the ethical dilemmas?
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and applications to collect unemployment benefits rose last week to the highest level since the end of June, topping all economists' forecasts. Jobless claims increasing by 14,000 to 225,000 in the week that ended November 9th. U.S. stock index futures are moving lower. Meanwhile, we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Investors are digesting the latest economic data and trade developments. Right now, S&P futures are down 7 points. Dow futures are down 55. NASDAQ futures down 24. The DAX in Germany is down 0.5%. 10-year Treasury up 16/32, yield 1.82%. Yield on the 2-year 1.60%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.7% or 40 cents at 57.53 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.5% or $7.10 at 14.70.40 an ounce. The euro 1.0999 against the dollar. British pound 1.2842 and the yen 108.59. We continue to watch shares of Walmart up 2% in early trading. It's approaching the crucial holiday season on a high note, posting solid third quarter sales and raising its full year outlook again, showcasing its resilience in the face of Amazon's advances. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It is not funny. It is more water than has been seen in 50 years. It is shocking images of Venice. I could wax philosophical, but John Farrell will do a much better job with our next guest. John, it's stunning for Italy.
It's truly shocking. The pictures are devastating for a lot of people that have visited that city. I want to bring in Ferdinando Giuliano now, Bloomberg Opinion columnist. Ferdinando, great to have you with us. I just want to breathe some life into the piece that you put out a little bit earlier and read the first line of it. Yes, climate change is to blame for the worst flooding since 1966, but the management of the flood defense project has been pretty abject. Just explore that further for us, Ferdinando.
Well, absolutely. So, as you were saying, this is the worst flood which the city has seen in more than 50 years. So, it is a really big deal. Now, I think it's undoubted that there is something going on with the weather. If you look at the exceptional high tides, there have been more in the last 20 years than in the previous 75. So there's been a big change of pace. But Italy has been thinking for the past 3.5 decades of building some form of defense system to protect the lagoon, the Venice lagoon, from high tide. And this project is still not ready. And I think this is pretty abysmal. And
right. Are we asking too much? Just simply put, with the winter seasons, with the impulse of the tide up the Adriatic Sea, is it just too much to ask technology to solve something built 600 years ago?
Well, this is a city which has survived for over 1,000 years. So, I don't think it's asking too much. I think we need to ask ourselves some questions. What's different these days in terms of weather? Why is it true that there were 121 days of high tide in Venice in 2018, almost twice as many as the year before? And also, technology, may not be perfect, but at the very least you want to see it functioning. And this project, the so-called Mose, after the prophet who parted the Red Sea, it's not ready, and it looks like it won't be ready until 2022. I don't think that's good enough.
Is it plugging a dam with your thumb, though? If the seas really are rising, is it sort of useless to try to come up with technology that may not be relevant in 10 years?
Well, that's one of the arguments we hear, and I think it's a very legitimate question. But at the very least, already 5 to 6 billion euros will be spent on this project anyway. Well, let's give it a try. I mean, it's a decision which had been started to be taken in the late 1980s. You may be right that it will not work, but given that so much money has gone into this project, I would say, let's speed it up, see if it works, and well, then if it doesn't, we can ask ourselves how we can improve on it.
Ferdinando, discuss how Venice fits into Italy. We go there, we trot there, we say we went to Venice, we're there for X number of days, we stand in line, we do all the things you do in Venice, and then we leave. How does Venice domestically fit into the fabric of Italy?
Well, I think, it's very interesting how the city has changed. And, you're right. There are, I think, around 20 million estimated tourists who flock into the city these days. I mean, fortunately, it's a city which is being progressively deserted by residents. It's a big, it's very expensive and very troublesome to live there. So it is becoming, and obviously it's way more profitable these days to rent your flat on Airbnb or the likes. So it is a city which is progressively, being detached from the fabric of Italy. Of course, it's hugely lucrative if you own a business or a flat there. But I think it is, it goes into this very deep question of how you manage tourism flows in this age of mass traveling, especially when you have countries such as China or other, emerging markets in Asia, which rightly want to go and see the world. But, can the world accommodate all these people?
If the Venetian government does nothing, how long before Venice doesn't exist anymore?
Well, there are some reports saying that, if the Mediterranean Sea goes up, the estimate that the Med could rise by around a meter over the next 100 years, and that would cause serious problems in Venice. Some say would sink it. I mean, obviously, these projections are very hard to make, but that's where we are, and it's very, very worrying indeed.
Within Venice, would you go there now? I mean, if the tides are receding, what's the experience, Ferdinando, of the water comes in, whether it's 6 inches or 3 feet, which we have at the low areas here? I mean, how quickly does Venice recover? I mean, they're used to this, right? It happens every winter. It's just this time's worse, right?
Well, I think, it does happen, and whenever you go there, you just see, the signs of the inventiveness of the Venetians. So it's, it's a city which is used to this. But I think there are two issues. One is the the size of this, and you've seen the images of what's gone on in St. Mark's Basilica. I mean, God knows if there have been permanent damages. This is a really big question. But I would say the additional thing is the frequency. They're becoming much more frequent.
Yeah.
This, I think, is the bit which should really scare us. Yeah.
One final question here. Mrs. Keene emails in. I don't know. What a surprise, Lisa, to see Mrs. Keene email in. She goes, Ferdinando, will the Gucci store be okay at Cal Larga 22 Marzo? Off there of San Marcos Square. Away from the cathedral, the church. I mean, will the retail shops be okay? Do they recover?
Well, I mean, there've been talk of some bags floating around shops, so maybe there's an opportunity to find some at a slightly cheaper price.
Get out the hook and the gondola as you go by. Thank you so much, Ferdinando Giuliano. Greatly appreciate it. With just a visceral knowledge of Italy. I will say, Lisa, and I'll be there the end of the year. It is magical, and I go the end of the year because then the tours are just bearable. I can't imagine the summers.
You're going to be going.
Have you been there in the summer?
I have not. No.
I can't fathom the summers. The tourists, when I'm there, the bridge outside where we stay is completely packed the end of December. I can't fathom what it would be like.
So what do you do? What do you do when you go to Venice?
What we do, we just crash, to be honest. This is very important. The whole Venice is not waterlogged. There's high parts of Venice. And, of course, the media goes to St. Marcos Square, which is very low. I actually have an app on my phone which shows the elevation of the ferry stops. So not all of Venice is underwater. There's many parts of Venice that are very quiet, very residential, particularly to the north side and off away towards the train station. But, it's a little misreported. OMG, Venice underwater. Many parts are still dry, and life goes on even now.
And I think that when we talk about the rising seas, that's only part of it. The buildings are also sinking in the lower parts. Yeah. And I think that that's the key issue. It's sort of, could you do something to stop the sinking, at least that factor?
Well, to your good questions to Ferdinando, I think the American approach is, what are you waiting for? Fix this now. And that's sort of a whole, the swirl of Italian government.
Oh,
I don't pretend to understand that.
You could turn the question right back to the United States.
You mean the potholes on 59th Street?
Come on. You could put a big sign ahead of New York City saying pothole. But not just that, but also with levees and with other issues to accommodate climate change that people are proposing, including with the U.S. and New York subway system. So, you could turn it right back at us.
Francine and I are trying to get a remote there. I mean, she was on the phone today to Venice, and, the name escapes me now, but the former ambassador of the United States to the United Kingdom, he's on the Guggenheim Foundation Museum board there, and there's a whole thing about Venice that's away from what we see in the tourism and the cruise ships going by and all that. It's really magical.
You just want to catch some Gucci bags for Mrs. Keene. That's all.
It's scary. Should we lobby Pharaoh Keene? Pharaoh would have to lead it remote from Venice. I could see it
on a gondola.
Yeah, well,
the surveillance gondola.
We could do that. Colin and the twins could come along. It'd be great. The cute little twins would be there in the blue and white, striped shirts. And
I hear screaming. It sounds like someone has cut off his hand in the control room over there.
It would be interesting. Anyways, thank you to Fernando Giuliano, and particular thanks to Francine for guidance on the story of Venice earlier this morning. The floods there, very, very serious. What appears real damage to some of their history. Futures deteriorate, -4, down -7. Dow futures -45. Much coming up. Further testimony of Chairman Powell on the Hill. This is Bloomberg.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
London. On chilly days like today, forgetting to turn the heating off is easily done, especially when you're out enjoying some lunch. But it's nice to know with Hive Active Heating, a Which Best Buy, you can turn your heating off from wherever you are. And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill, which sounds like the perfect excuse to order another course. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene. Thrilled you're with us, and this with futures at -7. Interesting day for the markets. Closing out 27,783. I'm not on the 28,000 watch, but that could happen in a bit. 3,100 on SPX. 3,094 on a close. That's just really something. And the VIX 13.31. Actually, maybe the VIX ought to be in a little bit, but it's not. But it's just a churn of the market here on November 14th. We say welcome to all of you. Good morning, Boston, 106.1 FM. New York, Bloomberg, 1130. And 99.1 FM in Washington. San Francisco, good morning. We're celebrating Cy Young winners. Mr. DeGrom of the Mets, extraordinary. Colin, help me, 21 wins in 2 years. I've never heard of that. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Folks, for those of you worldwide, usually when you win a Cy Young, you win 17, wins or 21 wins. Paul Sweeney, it's extraordinary. He's won an average of 6.5 games a year, and he's a number one pitcher in baseball. Never before.
It's crazy. It's all about, ERA and, whips and all these things. But, growing up, Tom, you had to win 20 games to even be in the conversation.
Well, tell me about the Build America conference, Paul.
Yes, we're down here at Build America Mutual. It is a conference talking all things municipal bonds. We're down here at the World Financial Center, which I think has actually been rebranded as Brookfield Place. But I think we all grew up with the World Financial Center. Spectacular how Lower Manhattan continues to be rebuilt and revitalized. Just extraordinary down here. So we're here talking all things municipal bonds.
Yeah, what I love about that, I've been down there with the good friends from Invesco and Oppenheimer, is Paul, they, with the tragedy of 9/11 and the devastation of Lower Manhattan and the faith to rebuild it and all that, they got the architecture wrong, and then they had the courage to fix it, which is rare.
Yes.
I give Brookfield major plus for that.
They really have done a spectacular job down here, and it's just tremendously vital down here right now, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, they need a 40,000 square foot Walmart to round it out right now. That's my segue to David Wilson. And David, I'm sorry, this is a Walmart with a plus. Is it about Walmart or is it about something else?
Well, it's really about Walmart in the sense that, fiscal third quarter earnings at the retailer beat analysts' average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Walmart raised its annual profit forecast. And as far as the top line goes, third quarter sales of items other than gasoline top projections at stores open more than a year. So you've got Walmart shares higher by 2.5% in early trading. Contrast that with Cisco Systems. Their numbers out late yesterday. Stocks down 5.5%. The networking equipment maker forecast fiscal second quarter sales will be little changed from a year earlier. Analysts expected an increase of 7.5% on average. And Cisco's profit forecast was also disappointing. Some analyst calls of note: Apple lower by 0.5%. The iPhone maker was cut to sell from hold at Maxim Group, which cited the potential for lower smartphone revenue during the next year. Kraft Heinz down 3%. The food maker was reduced to sell from neutral at Goldman Sachs. The firm said Kraft's earnings may weaken as costs increase. And Deere's down 1%. The farm equipment maker was lowered to neutral from buy at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Now, on the deal front, you've got HP up 2.5%. Activist investor Carl Icahn has a 4.2% stake in the computer and printer maker. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which said Icahn favors a proposed takeover of HP by Xerox Holdings. And Icahn has almost an 11% stake in Xerox. So he's on both sides of this potential deal. Then you have Qiagen up 3.5%. People with knowledge of the matter said the Dutch maker of genetic testing supplies may become a takeover target for Thermo Fisher Scientific. And the potential for a deal sent Qiagen's shares higher by 9.9% yesterday. So what we're seeing today is on top of the earlier gain. And since we're talking deals, we've got to mention Viacom. They're close to getting together with CBS, and their fiscal fourth quarter results were pretty well received. Earnings are higher than estimates, and the stock's up about 2.5%. And by the way, CBS is also up 2% at the moment. So pluses on both sides of that deal. Well, that's what I got, Tom.
Okay, very good. David
Wix.com is down 5%. You said a couple more. I got a couple. The website development company's sales missed the average estimate for the first time in 4.5 years. Wix.com's revenue forecast for the current quarter also came up short again. Wix.com down 5%, and Canopy Growth down 9%. This is the Canadian producer of marijuana. They reported a wider loss and much lower revenue for the fiscal second quarter than analysts expected.
David Wilson, thank you so much. Paul, what we missed on our remotes, and next year we got to put this on our calendar, a Texas Butterfly Festival on the border of Texas and Mexico, which segues into our next guest.
Absolutely. We haven't really talked too much about that border wall, which was such a big issue for President Trump in the 2016 election. Turns out there's a lot of environmental issues that are holding up the border wall. To get some more color, we welcome Ellen Gilmer, Bloomberg Environment Senior Legal Reporter, joining us on the phone from our Washington, D.C. studio. Ellen, thanks so much for joining us. Give us a sense of what the environmental issues are surrounding the construction of the border wall on the southern border.
Sure. So the main issues that you think of when you think of the border wall are human rights issues, immigration issues, but environmental groups are really in this fight. They're worried about impacts to people along the border in southern border communities. They're worried about impacts to public lands in the area. They're worried about impacts to animals in the area, endangered species, wildlands, and all of that.
So where are we in terms of actually border wall construction? It doesn't seem like much has been done there in terms of new construction.
There is actually construction moving along in parts of Arizona and other areas. So environmental groups have maybe a half dozen different lawsuits that are pending in different federal courts right now, where they're trying to block construction, block funding for construction.
So as we think about kind of how this is going to play out, so the timing, when I think about environmental issues, it just seems like it could play out in the courts forever. What's the timing associated with some of these things?
Well, these lawsuits take forever. That's a great point. These lawsuits are going to take a long time, but the Ninth Circuit heard oral arguments just this week in one of the cases brought by the Sierra Club. So we could see some action from the court on that. Ultimately, the Supreme Court is probably going to be weighing in on this issue in one case or another. And, a lot of wall construction is happening in the meantime because the Supreme Court has allowed that to go on. So some environmental groups have said they fully intend to ask courts to force the federal government to remove the wall that has been built so far.
I assume there's a political polarity here of environmental groups associated with the Democrats and non-environmental thrust associated with the President of the United States. And I think we all understand this. How's that played out in the courts? I mean, if it's the butterfly people suing the President of the United States, don't build the wall because the butterflies can't get over it, fine. But in court, is it a political argument or is it actually about the butterflies?
It's both, and it depends on the case. The butterfly case is the North American Butterfly Association, which has a facility, a refuge that's right on, the border. So that's what they're worried about. In all of these other cases, you really do see that it's kind of intersectional. In the Sierra Club case, it's the American Civil Liberties Union that's representing the Sierra Club. So you're seeing these coalitions build across issue areas.
How do you respond to the idea we could build anything, any place in the United States, and there would be some way to environmentally block it?
Well, I think especially for border wall protection, the government has an important counter argument to that, which is, they can make the argument in court that for national security, we need to waive certain environmental laws in order to build this. So some of the litigation is centering on that issue.
Oh, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Ellen Gilmer, thank you so much. And there's going to be a lot more on this, I would say. John, this really goes down to the environmental realities that John Farrell wants to build a wall between him and me in the radio studio.
Exactly.
Blocked by,
Tom, I'm impressed you were bringing the butterfly case in there. I didn't know you were aware that you're following the butterfly case.
When we were kids, it was like a huge, there's the economics thing, butterfly flaps its wing and it affects wherever, but no, when we were kids, the whole monarch butterfly thing was a huge deal. They go down to Mexico, and I don't.
Well, Pacific Grove in California is Butterfly City, USA. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I don't mean to make a joke about it, but okay, there's a wall. Do the butterflies fly that high? I don't know. Seriously,
I don't know. I'm assuming they can.
I don't know. Should we talk to Michael Barr about the gentleman from Detroit winning the Cy Young Award again?
Wow, another one.
Yes.
You know, can you finally find, what is it, resolution? Can you complete the circle?
Well, just when I find resolution, now the Astros are under a big cloud.
They are.
Cheating scandal.
The cheating scandal. The Detroit Lions, it's thought as well, when they play the Packers, they steal signs or something like that as well. Cy Young is very cool. I mean, Mr. DeGrom, talk about Bloomberg Business of Sports. I mean, the DeGrom story is extraordinary.
He's only Tom Seaver and DeGrom to win at least two Cy Youngs.
That's amazing. Michael Barr, thank you so much. Look for Bloomberg Business of Sports. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tom. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick says that he has joined the crowded 2020 Democratic presidential campaign. Patrick says he will launch his run for the White House in New Hampshire today or tomorrow. Kentucky counties will recanvass vote totals from last week's gubernatorial race after a petition filed by the governor. Republican Governor Matt Bevin fell about 5,000 votes short to Democratic opponent Andy Beshear. Bevin has yet to concede the race, instead requesting the recanvass, which will verify that the numbers submitted by machines to counties are correct. Today, El Paso, Texas will take an important step toward recovering from a dark episode in the city's history. The local Walmart, scene of the August mass shooting, reopens today. The massacre left 22 people dead. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. Michael Barr, this is Bloomberg Time.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Getting yields in 5 basis points, 1.84%. Nice pullback 2 days in a row. Lower yields. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery's running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only
only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Let me ask you, when do you believe you get the best deals? Black Friday? Why wait? The best deals are now at Carphone Warehouse. Save an amazing 60 pounds on the Samsung Galaxy A40, just $14.99 a month. How about a Vodafone SIM-only deal for an incredible 15 pounds a month with 10 gig of data? Get great deals today without the wait at Carphone Warehouse. Samsung A40 on select 24-month contracts. SIM Vodafone on select 18-month contracts. T's and C's apply. Visit website for more details.
From Bloomberg Television, here's Neera Chehich.
Great to catch up with you today, Lars Christian Bacher, the CFO of Equinor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. If we talk about the outlook then as well for oil demand, I mean, it's been a conversation that's been around for a while, peak oil demand, and we hear from the IEA that global oil demand is going to hit a plateau around 2030. Does that line up with your expectations as well?
Yeah, we see a peak demand during next decade, late next decade.
Mm-hmm. And you've said before that there is a chance that it might happen even earlier. How are you sort of preparing for that if you do have a case that we could get peak oil demand even earlier than 2030?
Well, one thing is peak demand. I think what the industry looking at is how much oil we need to deliver to supply whatever kind of demand you predict, whether that is peak demand during 2020 or 2030. Even in the most sort of energy transition optimistic scenario, if you look at 2050, this industry need to put in production new capacity of 300 billion barrels to be produced over that period of time. So it's a lot of oil and gas that need to be discovered, developed, and put in production to even deliver on the most pessimistic kind of oil demand outlook.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. The Bloomberg Futures Report brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new Micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at IBKR.com/CME Mini. And U.S. stock index futures are on the decline, along with stocks in Europe, and shares were mixed in Asia as investors digest the latest economic data and trade developments. The dollar is staying higher as producer prices rebounded in October by the most in 6 months. U.S. weekly jobless claims rose to the highest since June. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 6 points. Dow futures down 37. NASDAQ futures down 22. The DAX in Germany is down 0.4%. 10-year Treasury up 15/30 seconds. Yield 1.83%. Yield on the 2-year 1.60%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.7% or 38 cents at $57.51 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4% or $5.50 at $14.68.80 an ounce. The euro 1.1003 against the dollar. The yen at 108.61. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keynes, thrilled you're with us this morning. And as we do on Thursdays, it is always good to talk to Timothy Murphy. He is the football coach of Harvard. We'll talk about your ability to listen to them against Pennsylvania this weekend up in Boston, 106.1 FM. Tim Murphy, I'm still talking about Dartmouth, Harvard, which win or lose, I consider to be one of the great NCAA games in recent history. Your young kids had to move on to the next game, and it was difficult to move on, wasn't it?
Well, apparently it was in the end, but there's no excuse for a hangover. I mean, the bottom line is Columbia played hard, they played well, and they earned the win. Not that we shouldn't have played better, couldn't have played better, but I think it's indicative of the parity in our league. There's no easy games. There may be, if you're the absolute top dog in the league or two, that particular year, as we have been for so many years. Right now, we're a good football team, but we're not good enough to take anybody for granted. and Columbia outplayed us, and they did a better job coaching than I did as well.
For you, it's a new season. For your seniors, it's a final season. Pennsylvania and then Yale University. Those two games finish strong, don't they?
They do. It's always a tough run in November playing those guys. Penn this week, like us, I think Penn's had they've had their challenges, but they played Dartmouth and Yale really tough. They're coming off a big win over Cornell. So we have a lot of respect for this football team.
So, Coach, give us a sense of these Penn Quakers. Kind of, what are you scheming here for these guys? I know they've had been up and down season, as you mentioned.
Oh, well, they're a tough physical football team. I think they lead the league in rushing. They do a great job. They've got two quarterbacks that they rotate that are both very athletic. They've got arguably the top running back in the league, and Penn always plays tough defense. They've been in a lot of tight games. And they've come out on either end of those games, obviously, but they're a good football team, and they always play us tough.
So, Coach, what are you working on with your team this week to get ready for the Quakers?
Well, the reality is that we need to score more points. Right now the strength of our football team is on defense, and that's a great place to be your strength. But after scoring a lot of points early, we've struggled. We've had some injuries, but those are things you have to overcome. So the reality is we have to score more points, and we need to finish.
Tim Murphy, thank you so much. It's going to be exciting. Penn and Yale to finish the season for Harvard. Again, I really can't say enough, folks, about Dartmouth Harvard of 13 days ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was. That will go down as one of the extraordinary games in the history of college football. Coach Murphy with Harvard football. You can see the Crimson. They take on the University of Pennsylvania Quakers. They do that on Bloomberg 106.1 FM in Boston. Pregame coverage Saturday, 11:45 a.m. Paul, I want to talk to you about Disney up 14% since the beginning of the month. I mean, this story was out there, but they're out there somewhere out there. There you go. That was a movie like 8 times ago. I mean, they're so getting it done, but didn't we know that in October and September?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Tom, and everybody but Al from Jersey is happy with how the stock is performing. But, I think what's at issue here is it's becoming clear, I think, to a lot of investors that, there's probably room for 3, maybe 4 streaming services to really be successful, over the next decade or so. And we've already obviously got Netflix and kind of what they've done in the marketplace being the first mover. But it's becoming increasingly clear to a lot of investors that Disney's probably going to be one of those survivors. They just got extraordinary content. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of what's drawing on people. So it had held the stock back really over the last 2 or 3 years, i.e., boy, this Netflix thing is just bad for media companies. But now it's becoming, I think, a little bit clearer to investors that, maybe Disney does have a future here.
I mean, Apple, I guess, having an okay year as well. But Mr. Iger of Disney has done better than good. I mean, there he is with Disney since 2005, president and CEO for a hugely long tenure by today's standards. This is not Walt Disney, the fractious Disney family of another time ago. What has been the Iger strategy that has led to this return? It's
interesting. Bob Iger was on was a cover story of Bloomberg Business Week last week, and it really goes into the issue of Bob Iger's really, I think, staked his personal legacy on this pivot to streaming. He really went all in on this streaming business, most notably by, buying the most of the 21st Century Fox company from Rupert Murdoch for $71 billion. And he's saying basically, we're all in on this streaming business. We recognize that our core cable TV network business led by ESPN is in secular decline. People are cutting the cord, Tom, and so we have to go where our consumers are going. And he's made a huge bet here. So, and as you and I have talked about before, they're not going to make any money on the streaming business for another 3 or 4 years. So it's a big, big financial bet, but investors seem to be giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, they're a small company. They're a little over $250 billion. Let me be direct. Is Disney a takeout candidate, or is it the ultimate LBO with all the money sloshing around?
I think they're I think they're going to be on this path for the next 5 years, and investors are going to really be focusing on this streaming business. And the first, second, and third question every quarter conference call is going to be, how are your subscriber growth? What are your subscribers doing in terms of the streaming business?
We'll see. Last weekend we watched Frozen 4 times at home. We'll see if we can cut that back a little bit. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, Bloomberg Surveillance, thank you for being with us. We're going to continue forward here. We got to get the markets open. We do that with futures at -7, Dow futures -44. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures are slipping ahead of the opening bell. S&P futures down 7, NASDAQ futures down 23, Dow futures down 42. NYMEX crude is higher, up about 0.9% at $57.60 a barrel. Shares of Walmart are moving higher in pre-market trading. The retail giant saw solid third quarter sales and raised its full-year outlook for the second time this year. More Americans are seeking jobless benefits. Initial claims last week rose by 14,000 to 225,000, the highest level since the end of June. And the dining chain Houlihan's Restaurants has filed for bankruptcy with a plan to sell itself to billionaire Tillman Fertitta's Landry's, which owns several chains including Morton's Steakhouse. Landry's agreed to pay $40 million in cash for Houlihan's, which operates 47 restaurants in 14 states. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect getaway for two. We fly to over 70 destinations worldwide, so wherever you have in mind, we'll help you get there. Book now and choose from thousands of holidays under $399 per person and pay £0 deposit when paying with direct debit. Book online or in store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
What's the sign of a really first-class funeral directors? Is it how they're with you every step of the way? Is it the care they take looking after your loved one? The superb organisation they show on the day itself? The thoughtful little touches you maybe weren't expecting? Yes, it's all those things. But there's another sign you should also be looking for. The one that says Dignity. You'll find it's on every one of our branches and on the Dignity website. When you see it, you'll know you couldn't be in better hands. Dignity Funeral Directors, taking the greatest care.
London, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can set the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, going right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Couldn't. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the
2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning. I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. The opening bell brought to you by SEI. Today's competitive marketplace requires asset managers to become more operationally adept. See how you can transform your business with SEI's global platform at SEIC.com/IMS. And stocks are lower at the open. The S&P 500 down 0.1% or 4 points at 3089. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 0.1% or 22 points at 27,758. And the Nasdaq's down 0.25% or 22 points at 8460. The 10-year Treasury up 17/32, yield 1.82%. The yield on the 2-year 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.7% or 37 cents at 57.49 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.5% or $6.60 at 14.69.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1003 against the dollar. The yen 108.61. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. I'm at our world headquarters of Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. Paul Sweeney, Build America Mutual Conference. Paul, tell us about that conference.
Yeah, we're down in downtown Manhattan at the World Financial Center, also known as Brookfield Place, beautiful part of lower Manhattan. Yeah, talking about all things municipal bonds, Tom, as we know, there's a lot of money flowing into municipal bonds, a lot of investors looking for tax-deferred income, and the good folks at Build America Mutual are right there.
Very good. There are headlines out which you adjust to. We're going to rip up the script here, and we are advantaged with a perfect guest now to speak to this. The president of China has finally spoken on Hong Kong. Mr. Xi says China firmly opposes foreign interference in Hong Kong affairs. He says that China to firmly safeguard sovereignty, safety. He says that China to support Carrie Lam's governance. Violence in Hong Kong challenges one country, two system. He says restoring order is a most urgent task. With great perspective on this, Keith Johnson joins us, Foreign Policy magazine, writing on this economic linkage into our politics. It seems like the politics is taking over, Keith Johnson. There's a point where China must react, correct?
Well, you would think so. I mean, this has been, I think we're in 5 months now of varying degrees of disturbance, and of course the level of violence and police brutality and repression has gotten a lot worse. I mean, from my point of view, what's been interesting is to watch the Trump administration, U.S. officials more broadly, try to keep advancing these never-ending trade talks with China, while also trying to, throw a bone to the Hong Kong democracy protesters. It's a tricky balancing act, and I'm not sure that they've figured it out yet.
I mean, I think of our Ian Marlowe with his watch on the Asia Watch. You've been on the Asia Watch with the Wall Street Journal and then with Foreign Policy for years. So to be clear here, you do link trade discussions with the politics and violence in Hong Kong?
Well, I think there's implicit linkage, and Trump had made some implicit references to it that he wanted to he didn't want to rock the boat. This was what was this 6 weeks or so ago when they were still trying to set up the contours of what would become a phase one trade deal. And some of the discussion internally was, not wanting to rock the boat with too much of a vocal condemnation of Chinese behavior in Hong Kong. We've seen similar linkage in the past. If you remember, very early in the administration, China was going to be labeled a currency manipulator, and then suddenly Trump did a 180 and said, no, we're not going to declare them a currency manipulator because I want to court their help to deal with North Korea. And I mean, there's actually multiple examples, but this is an administration that explicitly links many different issues, not just siloing in terms of trade here and security issues here.
Keith, are you surprised that we haven't seen a heavier hand from China to date? in Hong Kong?
Not really. No, I mean, if you've got Hong Kong is kind of a special place, obviously, and it's a window on the world. It's obviously hugely important for its market presence, for its window into capital movements and foreign investment. You don't want to strangle that golden goose. On the other hand, and I think she was very clear with his comments here. You reach a point from their point of view, from the Chinese Communist Party's point of view, that you start to have a frontal challenge to their conception of the system, and then that's going to come crashing down. It seemed like this is sort of where we're going to get to. I'm not really sure at this point the implications of what's going on right now in Hong Kong, what that could mean as the U.S. and Chinese officials are desperately trying to put together this long-awaited trade deal.
It's interesting, Keith. I have to admit, I have really no idea where we are on the trade deal. I kind of thought every time I think we're pretty close to getting something done, something fundamental like how much farm products China will buy from the U.S. comes up. Where do you think we really are in terms of getting something done, even if it's just a phase one type of deal?
It's funny because we're all in the same boat, and your colleagues at Bloomberg News had a really good piece, I think today, that actually it was the farm purchases have become one of the latest snags in reaching this very modest phase one agreement or phase one deal. And the reporting from Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal and others suggests that the United States wants not only a large commitment of Chinese purchases, so in the order of $50 billion of U.S. agricultural products, but also wants quarterly commitments, basically binding commitments to purchase these things and sort of have them audited rather than just sort of letting the market decide. And the Chinese so far have balked at that.
Keith, one final question. You wrote a brilliant article in May with an observation, which is like, duh, of course I wish I thought about that, but I didn't, which is we are pushing so many adjacent partners more towards China. We talk about China, Vietnam, China, Taiwan, and then there's Mexico. Okay, we have an adjacency to Mexico, and you're saying this bilateral trade war could affect a greater Mexico-Chinese relationship.
Well, yeah, and in fact, this came up in the context of, there was the threat, and it's hard to remember all the different trade frictions there have been, but, in the context of the migration issues between the United States and Mexico, there was a threat to either close the border or to ramp up tariffs on Mexican exports to the U.S., and at the time, the response by a lot of Mexican officials was to redouble talks with China about different sorts of trade deals, certainly about more Chinese investment into the country. And so it's kind of interesting that you see it across Asia with trade pacts. You see it even between North American partners and China. There's a lot of rebound effect that's happening.
Keith Johnson, thank you so much. Calling from Madrid today. We greatly appreciate it. He's with Foreign Policy magazine. His article at the end of May was really quite something on this triangle, rather, I should say. Yep. Triangulation of America, Mexico, and China. We got a triangulation of the market right now. And Paul, it's pretty much as I expected. Red on the screen in futures. And we open up with a mixed market, red and green, which has a little element of that up to it.
It does, and I think the mixed market, the lack of direction we're seeing today kind of reflects a little bit on the trade news, as our prior guest was just mentioning. I mean, I thought buying soybeans was the easy part of the deal. I thought it was all about intellectual property, but apparently we haven't even agreed on, how many soybeans they're going to buy.
Yeah, Disney sustains its bid as well. I mean, to review here, folks, because Paul went long. You went long, the Mickey Mouses of December, those options?
Absolutely.
130 early November, and you're enjoying Disney now, moving out to new daily highs, I should say, 149. I mean, it's going better than good, right?
It's going really well, I think, for the company. I think they announced just after one day they had 10 million subscribers. I'm not really sure what that means, but it sounds pretty good. And I think the question for investors is, this is going to be a subscriber growth story going forward.
And of course, you told me, Paul, just go light on Apple. You said, it wouldn't work out.
Sorry about that one.
It's going to be a 300 here by the end of the trading session. Paul's Trading in Time. Can you stay with us? This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. The White House is reacting to the first day of the impeachment hearings. Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president, bashed the testimony of George Kent and Bill Taylor.
We are not going to impeach and remove a president from office based on what he said, she said, he thought. CIA does not stand for conjecture, interpretation, and assumption. We have to get serious here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yesterday, Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, testified that he had a clear understanding that Ukraine would not receive nearly $400 million in military aid until they publicly announced an investigation into the Bidens. Deval Patrick officially announced a late entry into the 2020 presidential campaign today. The former Massachusetts governor enters an already crowded field of Democratic candidates less than 3 months before the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary. People are warned against using airport USB charging stations. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office sent out a tweet cautioning about a USB charger scam known as juice jacking. They advise people not to use public USB charging stations at places such as airports or shopping centers, as they could be loaded with malware. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Tom.
Thank you. And repeat that. I've always thought that.
It's just like the skimming when you go to...
I've always... Thank Michael. We got to repeat that. We got to do a thing on that. Michael Barr, brilliant there on those, the little plugs at Reagan. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seizechange.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return and how to avoid the usual mistakes. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology does the work for you. As the deadline approaches, it checks for duplicates, looks for anomalies, and reviews VAT codes. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle. Search for QuickBooks, perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks, backing you.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile, all for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only. Club Card app required. Exclusions apply. Double data only on pay monthly. Home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status. See online for details.
This is the Survivalist Network. I told you it was coming. London is now in the full throes of a zombie outbreak. If you do not have an impregnable vehicle, you can still access a Toyota Hilux Invincible. Pre-contagion, it was £199 per month with 0% APR representative. For the good of future generations, friends at your local Toyota Hilux Centre are maintaining that deal. Heed, hurry, Paul. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th of December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, going right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
After yesterday's first public impeachment inquiry hearings and before tomorrow's testimony by the fired U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Democrats and Republicans are continuing their fight to sway public opinion. Capitol Hill correspondent Manu Raju.
Democrats believe that this new information really shows the extent of the president's push to get Ukraine to investigate his political rivals at the time in which Ukraine was awaiting this military aid, roughly $400 million that had been approved by Congress, amid questions about why that had not been turned over until September. And also as Ukraine was pushing for a meeting between the Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump.
Republicans say the testimony has been little more than secondhand stories and opinions offered as evidence. Former two-term Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick has released a video on his website announcing his candidacy for president. He said he's running for people who feel left out and left back. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Deals, courts, and world leaders.
When you served on the National Security Council staff, is this something people modeled?
It's all in Balance of Power with David Weston.
How bad an attack was this?
Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by Eisner-Amper. Taxes are one of the certainties in life, but what worked for corporate taxpayers in the past may not work today. Eisner-Amper can help. Visit EisnerAmper.com/tax certainty. And U.S. stocks are lower. Bonds are advancing as the risk rally that took equities to an all-time high stalls amid mixed economic data and mounting concern over a partial trade deal. We did get a mixed bag of U.S. economic data this morning, including rising producer prices and more initial jobless claims than expected. That gave traders few reasons to increase bets. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is down 0.1% on 2 points at 3091. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.1% or 23 points to 27,760. And the Nasdaq's down 0.2% or 18 points to 8463. 10-year Treasury up 17.30 seconds, yield 1.82%. The yield on the 2-year 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.9% or 50 cents at 57.62 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.33% or $5.30 at 14.6860 an ounce. The euro 1.1001 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.65. Watching shares of Walmart up 2.2%. It is approaching the crucial holiday season on a high note, posting solid third quarter sales and raising its full year outlook again. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios in New York, Paul Sweeney, you're downtown this morning.
I am downtown. I am at the Build America Mutual Conference down here. We're talking all things municipal bond. We're down here at the World Financial Center.
That's like a big deal. I mean, Build America came out of a program to really jumpstart infrastructure, right?
Absolutely. And, they provide insurance here for the municipal bond business. And, it's just they do some great stuff down here. And the municipal bond market, as you know, Tom, is seeing record inflows and record issuance. So it's a good time to be in.
I can't focus, Paul, because I'm looking at buying the Ninja Super kitchen blender system with food processor BL780. Nike for $99 from Walmart. That must mean it's time to talk to Sarah Halsack. Sarah, if I want to buy a Ninja Super kitchen blender system with food processor, BL780, why am I going to buy it from Walmart and not from Amazon?
So Walmart has been making a lot of progress in the e-commerce division. Sales were up 41% in the latest quarter. And they are really, Amazon, of course, there's this flashy news that they were moving to one-day shipping on a lot of Prime orders. Walmart has answered that with not quite as large an assortment as Amazon is offering one-day shipping on, but basically on all the sort of most commonly purchased items. And so, and you don't need a Prime membership, right? Prime costs $119 a year. Walmart doesn't have a membership format, so if you're going to buy your blender, that would be the reason to do it at Walmart.
Well, I'm on Ninja Blender because I want total crushing technology, crushes ice, whole fruits and vegetables in seconds. Okay, great, Sarah. What portion of Walmart is their future Amazon?
I think the most important part of Walmart's success going forward is its grocery division. This accounts for 56% of their U.S. sales, and it's a key traffic driver to the rest of the departments. And it's an area where they really do have an advantage against Amazon. They have this really well-developed fresh supply chain, moving perishables to customers' doorsteps into stores. It's just a whole different enchilada than moving books or sweaters, right? And Walmart has the infrastructure to do that nationwide much better than Amazon does. And they've had a lot of success with their online grocery pickup program, and they've now rolled out delivery from 1,400 stores. And Amazon, to me, just seems to be increasingly incoherent in the grocery space, right? They plunked down all this money for Whole Foods, just 2.5 years ago, and now they're starting a second grocery chain. They've confirmed this week.
This is important, Paul. You can get the Old El Paso enchilada dinner kit, 14 ounces, for $6.50. That's if you want the Halsack whole enchilada.
All right, and I get the Halsack discount, of course, I'm sure. So, Sarah, talk to us a little bit about the stores, the actual Walmart stores. Are they still opening new stores?
No, they've really backed away from that. There may be an occasional, they might open, say, 10 stores in a given year, but really now it's more about remodeling the fleet that they already have, making sure those store environments are inviting, and most of their CapEx at this point is going into online shopping, right? Is building out that warehouse infrastructure and software and all those kinds of things to really be able to take the fight to Amazon in the digital space.
So I'm looking at the Bloomberg terminal, the PGO function for Walmart. It gives us kind of this cool revenue breakdown by geography. So they get about 23% of their revenue from Walmart International. Talk to us about their international strategy. Is that where they see growth going forward?
Yeah, so Walmart, particularly in markets like Mexico, that's an important market for them where things have been strong and where they see some good runway for growth. Other international markets are more uncertain. They had tried to sell their Asda division earlier this year in the UK and were blocked by regulators from doing that. And clearly the UK, with Brexit looming, is a market where there's a lot of uncertainty and where the customer has been a little bit more challenging for them to reach. So international is important, but U.S. is still the bulk of the operating income and is where investors are really focused.
Sarah, under the filter system for Walmart.com, I put under Halsack, typed it in. Angara has a Black Friday sale, a classic ruby and diamond necklace in 14-karat white for $66,000.
On Walmart?
Walmart is selling $66,000 necklaces?
So Walmart has made a big effort in the last couple of years to expand its third-party marketplace, where much like how Amazon, a lot of the merchandise you see for sale on that website is not actually held in an Amazon warehouse or sold directly by Amazon. Walmart is trying to get into that same space to sort of make sure it has a wide assortment to compete with the everything store. And my best guess is that that's where that $66,000 bling is coming from.
It's pretty solid there, Tom.
It is.
It's just one click away, Tom.
One click, you look under Halsack, and there it is.
Sarah, I'm looking at the stock here, up 33% this year. It's hitting a 52-week high today. Sarah, are the bulls just saying, the consumer's in good shape, Walmart's figured out this online shopping thing, Walmart's not putting them out of business? Is that kind of the bull case for Walmart?
That's a lot of it. And then I think the other thing is that if we do go into a recession, if there is an economic downturn, or if the trade war continues to be a problem for the retail industry, Walmart is perhaps better insulated from all of that than anybody. Yeah. If we get into a recession, folks tend to trade down, right? And where do you trade down to? But Walmart. So they tend to actually, 2009 was actually a quite good year for them as folks were pinching pennies. And same with tariffs. Obviously, it's a very uncertain environment around that right now, but because of Walmart's sheer scale, its ability to negotiate with suppliers is pretty unmatched in the industry.
You've been great about that, Sarah. Let's frame that right now. Revenue is $500 billion. They take 6 cents down to the operating income line, the EBITDA line. Like we all know, Walmart is a 3 cents on the dollar business. You walk in the store and they pocket 3 cents of every dollar you spend as a generalization. From where you sit, and Sarah, this is maybe too financial, but let's go with it anyways. Are they going to become a more blue chippy company where they rotate from use of cash to build out to legit dividend growth? I mean, are they at a tip point where the family says, let's start acting like a mature company?
I mean, I think Walmart's been acting like a mature company for some time, with the exception of, having to incubate this e-commerce business from scratch, from within a very different kind of business. But I think they have a new CEO of their U.S. business, John Furner, who's a Walmart lifer, but will bring sort of a new eye to running the U.S. business specifically. And I'm sure he'll be doing so with an eye toward kind of bridging this sort of new part of the business, the e-commerce, with the legacy, the more mature part of the business, the physical stores that they know how to run so well.
Something, Sarah, that works for the office, you can tell Mr. Halsack, Saris and things, the 14-karat yellow gold, $24,000 bracelet says you. Sarah Halsack giving us wisdom on Walmart, really an extraordinary story. Paul, it just doesn't end. I never thought I'd see this headline, but there it is. Uber owes the state of New Jersey $650 million in taxes, and that's from a pretty good source. State officials say.
Yeah, that's this is an issue with being a resident of New Jersey. I'm happy to take that money, but the question remains is, what does this mean for other states? Is there some tax advantages that Uber had been claiming that maybe are retroactively not going to be valid? So just another issue for this stock.
Just another.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we've got insiders selling.
This is employment tax bill. I wonder, and this story just coming out, folks, I wonder if you look at the employment tax bill and you say this is the debate of our Uber drivers, 1099 drivers, or are they actually an employee issue?
Yeah, that's the big risk for this stock here. We have California as well going through the courts here about whether these drivers are independent contractors or are they employees. It goes right to the business model of all the gig economy, Tom, not just Uber.
And this is Christopher Opfer writing for Bloomberg right now. Again, that headline, folks, and this is on misclassifying of drivers as independent contractors. Uber hit with $650 million employment tax bill.
Yeah, stock down about 1.2% today.
That's something. Right on the screen, negative 12. It's a turn to the market. Don't forget, Chairman Powell in testimony later today, I should say, the House Budget Committee, and we'll have that for you as well. So Jerome Powell, day 2 on Capitol Hill. In the yield market, let's call it 2 days in a row, big in 6 basis points, 1.83%. That bears watching. We are produced by Colin of the Twins worldwide. This is Bloomberg.
On driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and come to the shops with me? We can get 10% off 2 big shops a month with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and 10% off your favourite Tesco brands, including F&F in-store every day. All for $7.99 a month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop. In-store spend only. Club card app required. Exclusions apply. See online for details.
This is the Survivalist Network. I told you it was coming. London is now in the full throes of a zombie outbreak. If you do not have an impregnable vehicle, you can still access a Toyota Hilux Invincible. Pre-contagion, it was £199 per month with 0% APR representative. For the good of future generations, friends at your local Toyota Hilux Centre are maintaining that deal. Heed, hurry, call. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th of December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
And what we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning. We are broadcasting live from Build America Mutual in New York. We've got a whole roster of luminaries in the muni bond market that we're going to be speaking with. Plus, we'll be taking a look at markets, even though we've got disappointing trade news, basically flat on the day with the S&P trying to turn positive. We've got more on that. Right now, though, let's get the numbers. Karen Moscow has that for us for the Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And yes, U.S. stocks are a little changed. Bonds are advancing, though, as the risk rally that took equities to an all-time high stalls amid mixed economic data and some mounting concern over a partial trade deal. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 at 30.94. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's down 17 points. That's still less than 0.1% at 27,766. And the Nasdaq's down about 0.2% or 14 points to 84.67. 10-year Treasury up 18.30 yield 1.82%. Yield on the 2-year 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.7% or 41 cents at 57.53 a barrel. COMEX gold up 1/3% or $4.90 at 14.68 an ounce. The euro is at 1.1001 against the dollar, and the yen is at 108.65. We got a mixed bag of U.S. economic data this morning, including rising producer prices and a report that showed applications to collect unemployment benefits rose last week to the highest level since the end of June. Uber Technologies owes New Jersey about $650 million in unemployment and disability insurance taxes because the rideshare company has been misclassifying drivers as independent contractors. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. Market Drivers is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, ranked 53rd in the nation out of more than 4,000 universities for mid-career earnings of its graduates. Learn more at njit.edu. Looking at kind of a mixed market here, just indices kind of generally flat. Let's see where the real action is underneath. We go to Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at this morning?
Well, you've got to look at Walmart, if only because they're really kind of the kickoff to third quarter earnings out of the retailers, whose fiscal year is generally a month behind the calendar. And, you look at growth in sales. U.S. stores open more than a year, up 3.2% once you back out gasoline, because, of course, that fluctuates over time. And so that went over well. So did the fiscal third quarter earnings, and they raised their annual profit forecast. To put it all together, I mean, Walmart's backed off its early gains a bit, still up 1.8%, though. And then you have the standout in the S&P 500, Tyson Foods.
Wait, hold on a second. Before you move on from Walmart, how representative is it really of retailers versus a story of transitioning well to the web and competing against Amazon?
It's a segment of the market. I mean, you're talking about, not the same customer that you'll see for some of the other major chains out there. If you think about Nordstrom as an example. but it gives you a sense of how, let's say, middle-income consumers are spending. So you have that. And, indeed, I mean, they are competing well, relatively at least, against the likes of Amazon, and that's helping their business. At the same time, it does, because of the sheer size of the company, serve as a bit of a retail barometer. So, you look at the numbers and you look at the reaction, you say the third quarter earnings season is off to a positive start, at least, for the retailers.
It's interesting. Look at that Uber news that just came across the Bloomberg terminal where they're get that $650 million unpaid taxes to the great state of New Jersey. That really goes to the a big issue for Uber is, and really all of the gig economy companies is, are their employees actually employees or contractors? It's a big, big issue as it relates to their cost structures.
Absolutely, and it's come up in California before, and so to have it pop up in New Jersey as well, I mean, at the very least, these companies are going to have to deal with more of these kinds of challenges to the way they run their business. I mean, Uber shares down about 1.5% at the moment, so... and bear in mind, this is a company that isn't making money now. If you figure they have to get stuck paying taxes, to California or New Jersey or whoever, well, I mean, that just puts the profitability goal that much further off, and you have to wonder, how well the business carries forward from here.
Meanwhile, you have pot, marijuana. Yes. Evidently, it's not so hot.
At least not in the case of Campy Growth.
Right?
It's down almost 15%. I mean, they were out with fiscal second quarter results. They had a wider loss than analysts expected, lower revenue, much lower revenue, actually. So, you put that all together. I mean, and you're talking about, the biggest publicly traded marijuana producer. So, if they're not doing well, and clearly the industry is a bit back on its heels. I mean, I suppose it's one thing to legalize marijuana, be it for medical purposes or otherwise. It's quite another thing to have investors willing to put their money into that area.
What's interesting to me? Markets are a little changed today, and we got some pretty negative news yesterday late about trade and about the fact that the U.S. and China can't even agree on soybeans.
Soybeans. We thought soybeans was the easy part.
That was phase one. Now it's turning into phase 0.2.
Well, you also have a bit of a flip side at the same time, and I was mentioning Tyson Foods a moment ago. Best performer in the S&P 500. The stock's up more than 5%, and that's in response to China finally lifting a ban on U.S. poultry imports that had been in place since January 2015. They had an outbreak of illness, didn't want the chicken in China. Now these companies can ship. I say these companies because it's not just Tyson that's up. You've got Pilgrim's Pride up more than 3%. Sanderson Farms up about 5.5%. So this change in the rules in terms of this piece of the trade picture, at least, working out well for companies in the chicken business.
So, Dave and Lisa, I know you guys, signed up for Disney Plus amongst the other 10 million people. Stock hit a 52-week high today, Dave. It's interesting. This is a business. Yeah, they signed up 10 million subscribers, but they're going to lose money on this streaming business for the next 3 or 4 years. The companies that actually admitted that publicly. So, I'm surprised maybe that the investors are just looking ahead and saying...
Are you really?
I kind of am.
Right. Have you not seen what happened with Netflix? They've burned through cash for 10 years. I mean, no one cares. They actually are rewarded for it.
I guess, but it couldn't have worked out any better for Disney, Dave.
No, Disney shares, by the way, at a record, period, full stop. Now, 52-week high, please. I mean, And just in terms of valuation, let's look at it this way. Disney now trading at a bit more than 30 times earnings. You turn to Netflix, you see a PE of about 92.
Oh, we got plenty of upside.
Yeah, I mean, and if nothing else, it shows you how much more highly investors are valuing the streaming business than they are the more traditional businesses that Disney is in. And now that they're moving into streaming, it may well be that, some of that valuation gap is closing here. At least that's what you can infer from the way that the stock is performing.
I mean, look, at least Disney makes money in some of its other businesses.
They do.
I mean, people are betting on streaming, even if there are no other businesses at this point to compensate. So there is that. Just looking ahead, we did get some economic data today, inflation data, kind of mixed. Jobless data actually came in higher than expected. What does that mean for bonds? We're seeing yields fall a little bit.
Well, just taking a quick look at the main industry groups in the S&P 500, you see there's a little bit of strength in, shall we say, the bond proxies, but it's not quite what we saw yesterday when groups like real estate and utilities stood out. You've got not a whole lot of movement across the market here.
Yeah, it's pretty flat, which is actually remarkable in and of itself, given some of the headlines we've gotten over the past 24 hours. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us from our Interactive Broker Studios. Thank you so much. We are broadcasting live from Build America Mutual in New York. We've got a bunch of incredible interviews lined up shortly. Right now, though, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, Chinese President Xi Jinping is responding to the growing violence in Hong Kong. Speaking at a conference in Brazil, Xi says, quote, radical, violent, and criminal behavior is challenging the one country, two systems policy. Bloomberg's Karen Lee has more from Hong Kong.
This sticks pretty closely to what China has said all along. They regularly they regularly say that there should be no foreign interference. They've accused the dark hand of the U.S. of foreign interference, of fomenting violence in Hong Kong.
The comments from Xi come after Hong Kong's government dismissed speculation it would impose a weekend curfew. Back here in the U.S., both sides of the political aisle are hardening their arguments after the first day of public impeachment hearings against President Trump. Democrats say career diplomats George Kent and William Taylor laid out a shadow policy aimed at pressuring Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. Republicans dismissed their testimony as hearsay and pointed out those investigations never happened. The hearings resume tomorrow with testimony from former Ukraine ambassador Marie Yovanovitch. Seems there's still room in the crowded pool of Democratic presidential candidates. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick is jumping in.
Patrick, now the managing director of Bain Capital, announced in a video that he is running for the people who feel left out and left back.
With a determination to build a better, more sustainable, more inclusive American dream for the next generation.
Patrick is expected to travel to New Hampshire either today or tomorrow before the filing deadline to get on the primary ballot there. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Intellectual property, one of the most valuable things we market in Asia.
I understand you're trying to rival the likes of San Francisco, New York.
We have our own brand of intellectual property.
Let's focus first on this U.S.-China trade story.
Find out why it's so valuable.
Do you need to see substance in an agreement or just that they stop shouting at each other?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
In cinemas November 15.
So you're going to build a car to beat Ferrari?
With a Ford. Correct. Get ready for Le Mans 66.
I hate guys like us because we're different.
Starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale.
What are they doing? Making your car go faster. That's more like it!
Based on the incredible true story.
You got a plan? It's high risk.
Of Ford versus Ferrari.
No, I thought the whole point was to win the damned race.
Le Mans 66.
Hit it.
In cinemas and IMAX November 15. The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status, damage charges may apply, no ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services, visit audi.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Asda this Christmas, treat them to a gift or two, or three, with 3 for 2 on a wide range of beauty and toiletry gift sets, from Dove, Lynx, Bayliss and Harding and many more. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Individual prices £1 to £20, cheapest item free.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile, all for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only, club card app required, exclusions apply, double data only on pay monthly, home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status, see online for details.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P edges away from records reached over the last week, sparked by hopes that the U.S. and China would soon hammer out an agreement. Now, that has not happened, and there's been an abundance of signs that negotiations are stumbling. Adding to that, a weak economy in China has reinforced concerns that the trade war is weighing on the global economy. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trade today on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is little changed, up just over 1. Dow Jones Industrial Average is little changed, up 6, and the NASDAQ is down a 1/10%, down 8. 10 years, up 17.30 seconds. The yield 1.82%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1% at 57.69 a barrel, while COMEX gold is up 0.2% at 14.6620 an ounce. The dollar yen 108.65. The euro $1.994, and the British pound $1.2841. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live from the Build America Mutual offices in downtown New York City at Brookfield Place, a.k.a. the World Financial Center. We're pleased to be joined by Sean McCarthy, CEO and co-founder of Build America Mutual. Sean, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for having us to your offices. Tell us about Build America Mutual. What do you guys do, and how do you fit into the municipal bond market?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Lisa, for coming. We are the leading municipal-only bond insurer. So basically, we're a AA-rated insurance company that guarantees the obligations of municipalities who are issuing municipal bonds to finance essential infrastructure. One of the things you think about, they think about the federal issues of raising infrastructure. It's really done at the state and local level. That's where the vast majority, 80% of all municipal bonds and projects are financed at the state and local level.
So perhaps 2019 will go down as the year of the municipal bond because the amount of record issuance, record inflows have blown out of the water prior records. I'm trying to understand whether this means more business for you. Yes, I'm sure it does. Or whether fewer people want to insure their bonds because they want the maximum yield and don't see downside.
Well, that's a good question. Two things about that. This is a record year. Through the three quarters, there's been $330 billion worth of municipal bonds issued. The large driver of that, and that's about 13.5% increase from last year. For BAM, we've guaranteed $2.6 billion worth of transactions this year to date, and that's a 31% increase from last year. So the reason the big driver in the increase in the markets is primarily because municipalities are taking advantage of refinancing opportunities to lower their cost of debt and to in order to do that because rates have been dramatically lower. The thing for BAM that's interesting is that we find investors having an increased demand in our product. And why? Because there are a number of issues out there that investors are concerned about, whether it's climate change, cybersecurity, pension fund shortfalls, events.
Do you insure against flooding?
Yes, we do. In fact, if we've guaranteed a transaction...
I was just about to say, are you going to insure Venice?
Well, as I said, we are muni only in the United States.
All right.
So it's interesting because I think when you look at what these risks are, we're guaranteeing those 100%, whether it's a wildfire that's in some area of a transaction that we've done in California, or these are all fundamental things that we're guaranteeing timely payment of principal and interest when due on the bonds to the investor. So they can sort of sleep tight at night knowing that our AA guarantee stands behind our obligations.
So, Sean, I am an avid investor in municipal bonds, but I do it for the tax exemption. Talk to us about the taxable municipal bond market. That seems kind of almost an oxymoron to me.
Well, it's interesting. So what's happened, because interest rates are relatively so low, and because Congress prohibited advanced refundings of municipal bonds, it turns out right now that municipalities can have tremendous savings by issuing taxable securities to advance refund the bonds that they used to refinance with tax-exempt bonds, but now they've done it in the taxable market. They're being bought not only in the United States, but it's really a global investment. We see Europe and Japan, Korea are big investors in municipal bonds at the moment.
Yeah, I want to actually explore that thought more. We are broadcasting live from Build America Mutual. We're speaking with the CEO of the company, Sean McCarthy. Sean, when we talk about foreigners coming into the United States, is this positive or is this potentially destabilizing for if there is a shift in the interest rate regime and the commensurate outflows?
So I think that right now, the world is looking for positive interest rates and good investments. And I think that the municipal bond market offers an opportunity for taxable investors globally to participate in the market. So I'd say that's a good thing because the more demand there is for the bonds, the lower the interest rate, the more savings that those municipalities obtain.
So aside from refinancing existing debt, are we seeing in the municipal bond market today really big issuers like the BART system in San Francisco or the New York MTA? Are we seeing small town USA building roads, bridges, that kind of thing?
I think it's across the board. So it's geographically diverse. In the third quarter, we've worked with 211 communities in 27 different states to help them issue bonds in the market through our guarantee. So I'd say that it's The big issuers are, of course, have been participating, but we've done a tremendous number of school districts and throughout the country.
In many ways, the essence of your job is risk management and to understand what could go wrong.
That's correct.
Are you seeing issuances right now out of municipalities that are raising the alarm bells?
Well, I'd say that that's a good question. There's a number of things that we look at that potentially could happen. We hope they never do, but our job is to be very intensive, very robust credit analysis on the securities that we guarantee. So, as I had mentioned, you look at some of the things that are happening, whether it's the wildfires in California, whether it's pension fund issues that are shortfalls that are affecting the finances of municipalities throughout the country. The key to it, though, is that, and we believe this completely, that municipalities, where they're issuing bonds for essential projects, whether it's bridges, tunnels, or roads, they are doing that in a way that it's important to their community, and their tendency is to want to repay those transactions. One of the programs that we've initiated over the past year is a Green Star. There's a big demand right now for an increasing awareness for bonds that are being issued for pure water, clean power. Yeah. And so in the past year, this is a program that we initiated, and we follow the international standards. We provide that as a service because we're a mutual insurance company. Yeah. And that service, we've done $700 million worth of transactions in this past year.
Sean McCarthy, thank you so much for having us here and for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Sean McCarthy is Chief Executive Officer of Build America Mutual, where we are broadcasting live. And it is the year of the Muni Bond, if you take a look at issuance and flows. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg Markets.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks will change this morning as we look to the economy. China's factory output and retail sales missed estimates, and Japan's economy slowed sharply. Are serving as a reminder of the impact of ongoing trade tensions. The owner of gun maker Smith & Wesson will split into two companies. One will be focused on firearms, the other on outdoor products. American Outdoor Brands is trying to reverse a stock market decline at a time when there is pressure for more gun restrictions. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said his Comstock Resources is in talks to acquire shale gas assets in Louisiana from financially strapped Chesapeake Energy in a deal that could be valued at more than $1 billion. And baby boomers, lay off the stocks. That's a message from Fidelity Investments in its third quarter retirement report. More than a third of the generation had crossed over Fidelity's recommended allocation to stocks, which is 70% for those 10 years from retirement. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When